Chapter 768. The depths of the soul oblivion sea were mysterious and dangerous. There was the ultimate, one of the four great ancient ruins, and the strange and ominous burial path sea tomb. Lin Sun had wandered in the demonic saint's secret land in the ultimate and met the old ape who was dormant in the sacred island of 5 elements. It was a true saint. He had also entered the spiritual square inch and obtained a Taoist hymn branded with unfathomable mysteries. He had also obtained a true saint technique, the battle saint technique. Similarly, Lin Sun had seen many ominous and strange things in the burial path sea tomb. It was like the corpse of an ancient god that floated on the surface of the sea. It was thousands of meters long and as large as a piece of land. He had also seen a blind monk with an extremely terrifying aura and a woman whose figure was blurred and shrouded in gray mist. If Lin Sun's speculation was correct, these two were definitely terrifying existences that had stepped into the saint realm. Lin Sun even thought of the mysterious girl in yellow, Hu. When he returned from the soul oblivion sea, he was chased by a group of kings, and it was with Hu's help that he was lucky enough to escape. Now that he thought about it, Lin Sun realized that no matter whether it was the ultimate, the demonic saint's secret land or the burial path sea tomb, the secrets hidden in them were absolutely beyond imagination, and what he knew and explored was just the tip of the iceberg. The mulberry forest in the bloodthirsty battlefield was even more extraordinary. It was filled with a bloody mist that seemed boundless, and many terrifying saint realm creatures were dormant there. There was even a Taoist palace that shone with divine light that pierced through the sky, and even saint realm figures didn't hesitate to fight for it. Indeed, there are many incredible places in the mortal world. It's not as barren as the people in the ancient desolation territory say. Lin Sun was silent for a long time before he sighed with emotion. Because he had seen it before, he was even more aware of the mysteriousness and extraordinariness of the mortal world. Moreover, according to what the current emperor said, the great secrets hidden in the lower dimensions could only be understood and explored by Lin Sun when he stepped foot into the king realm, and this was too shocking. The old priest on the observatory, the dean of the Green Deer School, the old man in the sleeping moon house, and the old dragon hiding in the east sea of the empire. If the mortal world is as barren as the rumors say, how could they be willing to stay here? The great emperor's eyes were deep. At his level, he had already seen through many secrets of this world. It was because he stood high that he could see far. There are also many barbarian kings lurking in the 9 branches of voodoo barbarians and a group of forces of ancient creatures living in the depths of the soul oblivion sea. Aren't they also waiting for the great opportunities buried in the inferior world? At this point, the great emperor shook his head. These secrets are still too far away for you. You only need to remember that if you want to rise in the Great World War and embark on the legendary path to the top, the ancient desolation territory is the only place that can give you this opportunity. Once you step foot onto the path of an absolute king, the lower dimensions will similarly provide you with the critical factor to improve a step further on the path of the Grand Tao. The meaning was simple. If one wanted to become a peak king, he had to go to the ancient, desolate territory. After becoming a peerless king, if one wished to ascend to the next level, they would have to return to the lower realms. Lin Sun completely understood. The current great emperor was pointing the way forward for him. The 9th prince was taken away by Gu Dongting of the Sky-Reaching Sword sect. If you meet him in the future, I hope you can spare his life. Suddenly, the great emperor spoke with some hesitation. At this moment, he had lost some of his disdainful majesty and more complex emotions as an elder. No matter what, the 9th prince, Zhao Jingzhen, was his flesh and blood after all. There was a deep hatred between Lin Sun and the Sky-Reaching Sword sect. The great emperor was very clear that once Lin Sun met his unfilial son, there would be a conflict. Okay. Lin Sun was silent for a moment before he agreed. However, if he insists on being my enemy, then kill him. The great emperor said one word at a time with a calm look. If you encounter any trouble in the ancient Desolation territory, you can go to find Jingxian. She grew up in the ancient Desolation territory and has powerful people to take care of her. I believe she will be happy to find her." When the great emperor said this, there was a trace of surprise in his eyes, which made Lin Sun feel uncomfortable. Was he encouraging him to contact Zhao Jingxian more? Lin Sun didn't know what to say for a moment. Buzz. The great emperor didn't say anything more. He waved his sleeve, and the five-colored altar in front of him rumbled as if it had awakened from silence. It emitted a five-colored divine luster and suddenly soared into the sky. It transformed into a magnificent and colorful path of nothingness that stretched across the heavens and the earth. At this moment, many old monsters in the forbidden city of the Empire were alarmed, and their spiritual awareness was cast to the depths of the imperial palace. There, the magnificent rainbow light rose to the sky like a dream. Lin Sun is going to leave. In an instant, these old monsters all realized that this was the opening of the passage to the ancient Desolation territory. "Next time when you come back, if you can impress me, I will treat you to a good meal." In the resting moon house, the thin and stooped figure of the old man suddenly straightened up, and an inexplicable look surged in his turbid eyes. "The road of changing your fate, against the heaven and the Tao, was borne by Lu Boya in the past. Now it's up to you." On the observatory, the old priest leaned against the railing and murmured softly, "Senior brother, he is gone." In the thatched cottage at the foot of the sky ladder in Green Deer School, the old man who had witnessed Lin Sun climbing the sky ladder woke up from a hangover. The hatred of the heaven-reaching sword sect, the heavens pivot holy land, the holy land of spirit treasure, and Lu Boya. He has many ties with the ancient Desolation territory before he arrives there. I'm afraid he won't be lonely on this trip. The dean smiled and said slowly, "The little devil is finally gone. God of plagues, goodbye." At the same time, the big shots and the big forces such as Zhua, Qin, and Qi who once hated Lin Sun completely breathed a sigh of relief. In the smiles of beauties, suddenly, a wave of impassioned and majestic music resounded in the hall, and the tune was grand and magnificent. Suddenly, all the guests in the whole building stopped what they were doing and listened attentively, because they were familiar with this song. The river flows out and the ocean flows out. The hidden dragon soars into the abyss, and the scales and claws fly. The baby tiger roars in the valley, and all the beasts are frightened. The eagle tests its wings, and the wind and dust blow. A clear and melodious song sounded with the passionate and majestic music. Every word was like the surging of wind and thunder, and the resonance of mountains and rivers, which made people excited, as if their emotions had been ignited. Even if there are thousands of years and 8 desolations, the future is like the sea, and the future is long. In the whole smiles of beauties, many practitioners couldn't help picking up chopsticks, knocking the bowls and plates in front of them, and singing along. When the passionate and heroic voices gathered together, there was a kind of shocking power, which surged between heaven and earth and made people's blood boil. This was the song of Heavenly Sun. At the 300th birthday party of the Empress, Lu Qinyan, who was known as the first artistic practitioner in the empire, shocked everyone with this song. The Empress praised her song and named it the Song of Heavenly Sun. It had long been known that Lu Qinyan, who composed the lyrics and music, was inadvertently inspired by Lin Sun's fame, so she composed such an impassioned and heroic song, which spread all over the world and was sought after by thousands of people. The future is like the sea, and the future is long. Some practitioners coincidentally thought of Lin Sun, who was about to set off, and sighed with emotion. It's a pity that it's not Miss Lu Qinyan who sang this song. It is said that she has quietly gone to the ancient Desolation territory for cultivation. I'm afraid that we will never have a chance to hear her beautiful voice again in this life. Someone sighed and thought of the legendary first artistic practitioner in the empire. Whoosh! On the 5-color altar, Lin Sun's figure disappeared out of thin air, and he stepped on a mysterious passage. This road seemed to run through time and space. It was colorful and magnificent, and the rain of light was falling. Walking in it was like walking in the river of time. In his days, rainbows flickered like rain from time to time, enormous stars flowed brilliantly, and black clouds and mist that seemed like chaos rose and sprayed. It was mysterious, misty, beautiful, and magnificent to the extreme. Whoosh! Lin Sun moved forward at full speed, using the ice dragon step. His figure was like a flowing rainbow. The catastrophe of the Tao is coming, and the boundary wall is unstable. Remember, don't look back and rush forward as soon as possible. This was the exhortation from the Emperor before he left. Lin Sun naturally did not dare to neglect it. However, it didn't take long for a cracking sound to be heard. There were many dense cracks like spider silk in this passage, which continued to spread and expand at an extremely fast speed. Lin Sun gasped and looked solemn. He ran wildly, and the snow-white shadow of the ice dragon appeared around him, which made his speed extremely fast. Boom! Behind him, there was a terrible explosion, as if the world was collapsing. Lin Sun did not dare to look back, and he began to feel anxious. This was the passage to the ancient desolation territory, which spanned the two realms. Once it collapsed, the destructive power was enough to kill him in an instant. There was no chance for him to struggle at all. Whoosh! A flying rainbow suddenly swept out, with a hazy aura of chaos, like a sharp blade, and brushed past Lin Sun's shoulder. At that moment, Lin Sun's scalp was numb, and he had a sense of horror as if he had brushed past death. What was that? Lin Sun was shocked. He did not dare to look back, but he was sure that the flying rainbow just now came from the collapsed passage behind him. Rumble! The void passage collapsed faster and faster, and there was a burst of explosions. Terrible turbulence, light rain, and storms were raging and spreading wildly. Lin Sun ran wildly, and in the end, he even took out the vast universe arc and moved forward like a flickering light, avoiding the thrilling scenes again and again. Before long, Lin Sun's pupils suddenly shrank. In the distance on one side of the passage, there was an extremely huge and strange beast, wrapped in thousands of stars, crossing the boundless void and rushing towards him. Just a pair of eyes were as frightening as a pair of big suns, bursting out cold and ruthless divine light. Compared with its huge body, the stars were like inconspicuous beads. Hiss! Lin Sun gasped. What the hell was this? What made Lin Sun's hands and feet cold was that the strange beast was running towards the void passage. If he let it get close, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. Run! Lin Sun drove the vast universe arc, and almost used all his strength to rush forward crazily. How could he expect that just setting foot on the passage to the ancient desolation territory would lead to such a big change and so dangerous? Rumble! The void passage began to show signs of complete collapse. There were signs of collapse everywhere, and a rain of light rained down like a waterfall and turbulence surged. And in the distant void, the strange beast was getting closer and closer. Lin Sun could even clearly see that in the depths of its eyes, there seemed to be a pair of shining silver divine runes burning. They were obscure and cold, as if they could swallow a person's soul. They were terrifying to the extreme. Bang! In the next moment, Lin Sun felt his entire body shake. The vast universe arc fiercely shook and flew out of the passage, rushing into the boundless chaos. Then, the heavens shook and the earth quaked. There was a terrifying crash, and a formidable force swept out in all directions, turning the nearby rocks and vegetation into powder. A giant pit appeared in the ground. Cracks spread out along the pit, covering a distance of 1,000 feet, as if a meteor had fallen from the sky. And at the bottom of the pit, the vast universe arc violently trembled for a long time before returning to silence. And in the vast universe arc, Lin Sun's lips were bleeding, his face pale, and he slumped on the floor of the cabin, gasping for breath as large beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. Did I survive? After a while, Lin soon recovered from the horror and struggled to get up. Only then did he find that he had been injured in the escape just now, and his physical strength was on the verge of exhaustion. Fortunately, I escaped from death. Lin soon gritted his teeth and sat cross-legged to heal his injuries. At the same time, he was sensing silently. In an instant, the scene of the outside world was reflected in his mind. This was a strange world with dense spiritual chi and lush vegetation. In the distance, there were beautiful mountains surrounded by divine clouds, magnificent and delicate. This Lin Sun's eyes widened. Was this the ancient wilderness territory? Because there had never been such abundant spiritual chi in Xiao Empire. Heart-cleansing Peak was known as the place with spiritual veins, but compared with the spiritual chi in this world, it was as barren mountains and unruly rivers. It should be a success. Lin Sun's black eyes flashed with a gleam. He had vaguely felt that there was an inexplicable force distributed between heaven and earth, invisible and omnipresent. That was the complete order of the Great Way. The Great Way in Xiao Empire was incomplete, which was completely different from this place. Lin Sun once entered the ancient spirit world with the help of the assessment of the heaven accessing place, so he was very clear about the difference of the order of the world. Chapter 769. I, Lin Sun, have finally come to the ancient desolation. Lin Sun was excited, but he also had a feeling of surviving a disaster. It was so dangerous just now that he was almost killed. Even so, he was injured and consumed a lot of physical strength. I wonder what kind of existence that strange ferocious beast that carried a myriad of stars and traversed the boundless void to arrive. It's too terrifying. Lin Sun thought of the scene when he crossed the void passage again, and he still had a lingering fear. Long ago, he knew that there was great horror hidden in the void. Only when he reached the Saint Realm could he comprehend and control the mystery of the void and carry out the great shift across the void barrier. Now, after experiencing the dangerous scene just now, Lin Sun was more aware of the horror of the great shift. The nearby area was very quiet. It should be a wild place with few people. In the distance there were huge winding mountains. Ancient mountains rose from the ground and rose into the sky like pillars supporting the sky. It was a scene of primitive wilderness everywhere. A great sun hung high in the sky. It was brilliant, blazing, and glowed with flames. Moreover, it actually emanated strands of extremely thin sun essence. It was completely different from the Xiao Empire. In addition, Lin Sun's spiritual awareness could keenly perceive that this world was extremely vast, and the void was dense with spiritual chi. Just breathing it made people feel relaxed and happy. No wonder the practitioners in the ancient desolation regard the mortal world as a barren land. Compared with it, the ancient desolation is really extraordinary. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. According to his deduction, even ordinary people living in the ancient desolation and breathing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth all year round would inevitably prolong their lives and make them strong and energetic. It would be easy for them to set foot on the road of cultivation. But the mortal world was different. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth was so barren that most ordinary people in the world could not set foot on the road of cultivation in their lifetime. Moreover, the biggest difference between the ancient desolation and the mortal world was that the great way of heaven and earth was complete. The benefits were so great. When cultivating in the mortal world, the great way was incomplete, and the Tao runes comprehended were destined to be incomplete, which would inevitably affect the cultivation of practitioners and make them unable to climb higher levels in their lifetime. However, cultivating in the ancient desolation domain would not cause such a problem. Perhaps Qing Zhe can be considered a genius expert, but the reason why he was able to easily suppress those great reincarnation developing stage cultivators of the empire isn't because of his strength, but because his cultivation path is flawless. On the other hand, perhaps those great figures of the empire possess cultivations that are much higher than him, but they cultivate and comprehend an incomplete path towards the Tao, causing their cultivations and strength to be incomplete. Thus, the might they can bring out in battle is bound to be inferior to cultivators from the ancient desolation region like Qingzhe. Fortunately, when I was in the depths of the soul oblivion sea, I had made up for the flaws in my cultivation and recultivated the four realms of martial realm, gang spirit realm, sea spirit realm, and Tao insight realm. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I'm not as good as the practitioners in the ancient desolation realm. Lin Sun understood a lot in an instant. Whoosh! An hour later, Lin Sun stood up from meditation and put away the vast universe Arkansas. I have to leave this place as soon as possible. The commotion I made just now was too big. I can't guarantee that I won't attract the attention of nearby living beings. After adjusting his breath, Lin Sun had recovered part of his cultivation, so he immediately decided to leave this area. What a strong force of suppression! However, as soon as Lin Sun moved, he immediately felt something different. When he flew, he had a feeling that his hands and feet were tied, as if he was being suppressed. This surprised Lin Sun. No wonder the practitioners from the ancient desolation realm became so powerful when they appeared in the mortal world. Because they were no longer bound and suppressed, they could release more power than before and experience a feeling of unscrupulousness. Suddenly, Lin Sun's eyes narrowed again. In an instant, he sensed in his spiritual awareness that a figure was stealthily approaching from a very far place. It was a young girl who was about 10 years old. She wore a plain dress, and her light blue hair was coiled into two buns. Her black eyebrows were curved, and her eyes were large and pitch black. She looked pure and lovely, and had a kind of lovable and naive feeling. But at this moment, she had a sneaky look on her face as she cautiously approached them. In her fair hand was a shining silver spear. "Ah, I found it. It's over there." Before long, the girl's black eyes lit up when she saw the big pit on the ground in the distance. She couldn't help waving her pink and crystal little fist excitedly. Hey, the movement just now was so big. There must be a great treasure unearthed. Well, this may be my big chance. The young girl hadn't even approached him when she started muttering to herself, and she seemed to be filled with longing and joy while a trace of crystalline saliva flowed out from the corners of her moist lips. Coupled with her pure and charming appearance, it caused her to be slightly amusing and cause others to smile. Ahem. Lin Sun coughed twice and showed up. He had found that the little girl was not a threat. Xia Xiaochong opened her round eyes wide and her mouth slightly open. She stared at Lin Sun, the unexpected guest, with a dumbfounded look. Then, she seemed to react and cried, "Don't kill me. You can have the chance. I don't want it. Goodbye." As she spoke, she fled back the way she came like a frightened rabbit. Lin Sun was a little stunned. He touched his face subconsciously and thought, I didn't show any hostility just now. Why is it so scary? Hey, don't run. I mean no harm. Lin Sun tried to make himself seem amiable and chased after her. My master said that I'm not allowed to talk to strangers. Don't come over, or I'll kill you if I get angry. Xia Xiaochong screamed in the distance. She seemed to be more and more panicked. I said I mean no harm. I'm just lost and want to ask you for directions. Lin Sun felt helpless. How old are you? How can you get lost? I don't believe it. You must be lying to me. You stop chasing me, or I'll really get angry. Xia Xiaochong turned her head, gritted her teeth, and put on a ferocious look. But her appearance was too pure, so it seemed like she was making a face and didn't have the slightest deterrent force. Especially when she saw Lin Sun's figure approaching, she immediately cried out in shock and turned around to flee. Lin Sun completely saw that this was a young girl who was inexperienced in the world. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure flashed and blocked Xia Xiaochong's way, saying, "Little girl, I really—" Before Lin Sun finished his words, Xia Xiaochong seemed to be unable to stop and bumped into him. Lin Sun immediately stretched out one hand and pressed Xia Xiaochong's head. Then he hugged her waist with his left hand and placed her in front of him. Xia Xiaochong seemed to be a little confused and said foolishly, "Why did you suddenly run ahead of me?" Immediately, she looked at Lin Sun pitifully with tears in her eyes and said, "Please, don't kill me. This is the first time I've gone out of the sect to practice. If I die, my master will be very sad." Lin Sun felt helpless and said, "You and I have no grievances and we don't know each other. Why should I kill you?" Xia Xiaochong was stunned. She scratched her head and said, "What you said seems to make sense." She was dressed in a plain dress and her light blue long hair was coiled into 2 buns. She looked pure and lovely, but it was obvious that she was a little confused, like a heartless child who didn't understand the world. "So you're really lost?" Xia Xiaochong looked at Lin Sun with her dark eyes clean and clear, looking very puzzled and curious. Although Lin Sun felt that the reason of getting lost was a little ridiculous, he still nodded seriously. He knew nothing about the area he was in now and needed to understand everything as soon as possible. "Is there anything I can help you with?" Xia Xiaochong asked. It seemed that she was no longer vigilant and afraid, but very concerned. Lin Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It felt really weird to let a confused little girl treat him as if he was mentally retarded. "Of course you can help me." Next, Lin Sun asked the question he was most concerned about, "Where is this place?" Xia Xiaochong blinked her eyes and said in a clear voice, "Purple Ox Mountain." "Don't you know? But how did you get here?" Lin Sun just asked one question, but this girl replied several times, which made Lin Sun speechless. He said patiently, "I ask and you answer." Xia Xiaochong was very obedient and said happily, "Okay, ask away. Where is the nearest city to Purple Ox Mountain?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" Lin Sun was speechless. This girl was too confused, wasn't she? "Yes, because there is no city within tens of thousands of miles of Purple Ox Mountain." "You don't even know this?" Xia Xiaochong's words made Lin Sun feel a little embarrassed. It turned out that it wasn't this girl who was confused, but he had asked an idiotic question. "Alas, you are too pitiful. Not only are you lost, but there seems to be something wrong with your head." Xia Xiaochong's clear big eyes were full of pity. "Why don't you come with me? I'll take you to my master and let him treat you." Something wrong with his head? Treat? Lin Sun suddenly found that when he faced this little girl, he always had an impulse to go crazy. "I ask, you answer." Lin Sun took a deep breath and said in a serious tone. Xia Xiaochong made an "oh" sound and her pure little face was full of sincerity. "Well, it seems that you still don't want to admit that there is something wrong with your head. But it doesn't matter. You are already so pitiful, I won't laugh at you." Lin Sun was speechless. He was really speechless. If the practitioners in Xiao Empire knew that the young heavenly talent in their hearts was almost driven speechless, crazy and silly by a pure, lovely and confused girl as soon as he arrived at the ancient desolation territory, what would they think? In the end, Lin Sun compromised and decided to go with Xia Xiaochong. He didn't ask any more questions, because the girl's answers were always so hurtful. "Hey, let's go. When the soul concentration pearl in my hand is full of soul energy, I'll take you to see my master." The girl in a plain dress led the way with light footstep. Her lavender hair was fluttering in the wind, making her look like a carefree and innocent little butterfly. This was Xia Xiaochong. The first practitioner Lin Sun met after arriving at the ancient desolation territory was a confused, naive and pure girl. P.S. A new chapter has set sail, and Lin Sun's struggle for the Great Way is about to begin. Please visit the website for the latest updates of this book. Chapter 770. Song Mountain was vast and winding, and the land was surrounded by magnificent clouds. Ancient trees formed a forest that shot into the sky. Even the plants on the ground were luxuriant and exuberant, and they emanated exuberant vitality. Everywhere that met the eye revealed a primitive aura. Xia Xiaochong, carrying a silver spear, shuttled through the grass with light steps, lively and pure. Soul-concentrating pearl? Lin Sun was curious on the way. Well, this is it. Xia Xiaochong turned her palm, and a blue bead appeared in her hand. It was the size of an egg, crystal clear, and dense with a cold luster. When hunting fierce beasts, you can use this pearl to devour the souls of fierce beasts. When the number of souls accumulated reaches a certain level, the divine condensation pearl will undergo a transformation, turning into divine condensation jade. It can be used as medicine, or it can be used to forge ancient treasures. Xia Xiaochong's voice was crisp and clear. The congealing pearl in my hand is only at the middle level and can only devour the souls of fierce beasts at the level of sea spirit realm. My task this time is to fill this congealing pearl with souls and transform it into a middle-level congealing jade. Then I can go back and report to my master. Lin Sun was interested in it. He borrowed the concentration pearl to observe it. When his spiritual awareness entered it, he immediately saw dozens of fierce beast souls floating in it, including green-maned horned python, earth-splitting black fox, flying cloud fire sparrow, three-eyed partridge, etc. Accumulating the souls of fierce beasts and transforming them into divine jade, which can be used as medicine or refining weapons. This treasure has such a magical effect? Lin Sun was very surprised. It was the first time that he had seen such a strange treasure. Yes, my master said that there are natural top-grade congealing pearls in this world. They can not only devour the souls of fierce beasts at the level of reincarnation developing realm, but also condense the qi of Tao, which has an incredible effect on understanding the mystery of Tao. Xia Xiaochong's face was full of longing. Hey, you're drooling. Lin Sun reminded her. Xia Xiaochong hurriedly wiped her moist lips and smiled. Sorry to make you laugh. Although she said that, she didn't feel embarrassed at all. She had a carefree look on her face. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but be speechless. He quite liked this girl's character. How many more fierce beast souls do you need? Asked Lin Sun. Xia Xiaochong frowned and said weakly, Many, many. How much? At least 1,000. So many? Yeah, it's very difficult for a mid-grade spirit congealing pearl to transform into a mid-grade spirit congealing jade. Master said that this is a test for me. If I can't do this, I won't be allowed to return to the sect. Which sect are you from? Oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm from the Star Vault Dao sect. Starry Vault Dao sect? Can you tell me about it? Haven't you heard? Our Stardome Dao sect is very famous in the fire spirit state. The reason for that? You definitely won't be able to guess it. That's because there are only 2 people in our Starry Dome Dao sect. 2 people? Yeah, me and my master. Truly amazing. Lin Sun didn't know what to say for a while. A sect was famous for its small number of disciples. What a weirdo. I also think it's amazing. However, Xia Xiaochong had a proud look on his face. His chin was raised very high, and his big, clear eyes were shining. Sometimes, ignorance may be a kind of happiness. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. As they chatted along the way, Lin Sun inadvertently learned a lot of things. The ancient desolation realm. This was a vast, beautiful, ancient, and magnificent world. From the ancient times to the present, countless orthodoxies had been born in this world. There were countless living creatures, tens of thousands of tribes, heroes and talent. It had an unimaginable ancient heritage and glorious history. At the same time, there was a saying in the ancient desolation realm, 1 domain, 4 great worlds, 1 domain, 3,000 provinces. 1 domain, 4 great worlds referred to Dongxing World, Shiheng World, Nanxian World and Beidou World. Every single world could be said to be vast and covered boundless territory, and the so-called 3,000 provinces in a single world was absolutely not an exaggeration. Moreover, there were some small worlds scattered throughout these 4 great worlds, and they were so vast that it was unimaginably vast. Each domain had its own unique cultivation orthodoxy and history, including different forces, races, and orthodoxies. It could be said to be as numerous and magnificent as the stars. When Lin Sun was in Xiao Empire, he couldn't help but be shocked when he heard some descriptions about the ancient wilderness domain. Later, he felt relieved. Maybe it was because of the vastness of the ancient desolation territory that there had been so many legendary giants and geniuses since the antiquity time. At this time, Lin Sun had learned that he was now in the Shiheng boundary in the ancient wilderness domain in the fire spirit state. The Shiheng boundary. It was a strange world for Lin Sun. Before he came to the ancient wilderness domain, Lin Sun only learned about the general situation of the Dongxing boundary. Because the Dongxing boundary was known as the real Holy Land in the ancient wilderness domain, there stood the oldest and largest orthodoxy in the world, flourishing and prosperous. It was the heartland of the ancient wilderness domain. It was no exaggeration to say that nearly half of the ancient orthodoxies in the ancient wilderness domain that could be traced back to the ancient times were located in the Dongxing boundary. As far as Lin Sun knew, the heaven-reaching sword sect, where Yun Qinbai was located in the Dongxing boundary. Xiaochong, have you heard of the Dongxing boundary? Lin Sun asked. Of course I've heard of it. Just like the West Hung world, it's a renowned sacred place in the ancient desolation domain. It's extremely prosperous and has a true saint presiding over it, and it's one of the places that cultivators in the world yearn for the most. Xia Xiaochong answered without hesitation. Lin Sun was refreshed. Then do you know how to go to the Dongxing boundary from the Shiheng boundary? I don't know. Xia Xiaochong shook his head. It's too far. When I was a child, I heard from my master that the Dongxing boundary is not a place that anyone can go to. To go there, you have to cross many big provinces and realms. The distance is so long that it is no different from that of mortals going to heaven. Lin Sun's heart sank. Was it very far? He realized the problem. Originally, when he left the empire, the end of the void passage should be the Dongxing boundary. But there was a big accident on the way which caused the void passage to explode, so that he was also affected. By a freak combination of factors, he came to this strange Shiheng boundary. You want to go to the Dongxing boundary? Xia Xiaochong asked curiously. Lin Sun didn't hide it and nodded. The first purpose of his coming to the ancient wilderness domain was to take revenge. And to take revenge, he had to go to the Dongxing boundary. Because the heaven-reaching sword sect was there, so was Yun Qinbai. You are really ambitious, Xia Xiaochong praised, and his pure little face was full of admiration. Lin Sun was speechless for a while. It was just going to the Dongxing boundary. Why did it have anything to do with ambition? By the way, your master should know how to go to the Dongxing boundary, right? Lin Sun couldn't help asking. Probably. Xia Xiaochong was a little hesitant. When I go back to the sect, I can ask for you. Then I'll leave it to you. As soon as Lin Sun said this, there was a sudden sound of breaking the air in the distance. A group of practitioners came whistling by on conveyance light. It was a group of young practitioners, handsome men and beautiful women, dressed in gorgeous clothes. Each of them was extraordinary. At first glance, it was obvious that they came from a big force. But soon, Lin Sun withdrew his gaze. Most of these men and women were in the sea spirit realm, and the highest cultivation was only in the Tao insight realm. For Lin Sun, they didn't pose any threat at all. Hey, isn't this the little insect from the Star Vault Taoism sect? Suddenly, someone called out in a mocking voice. After that group of people came close, they stopped in the void and looked over. Humph! My name is Xia Xiaochong, not little insect. Xia Xiaochong glared at him and angrily argued for himself. Ha! Those men and women roared with laughter. Obviously, they were all very familiar with Xia Xiaochong and knew his character, so their attitude was very unscrupulous. Among that group of practitioners, there were some women who even showed disdain, as if they didn't take Xia Xiaochong seriously. Little insect, there are only 10 days left in the Purple Ox Mountain. Have you collected enough fierce beast souls? Asked a young man in the lead with a smile. No. Xia Xiaochong shook her head. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. He had to admit that Xia Xiaochong was really a simple-minded and innocent girl. She didn't even hear the ridicule in the young man's words and answered honestly and frankly. It seems that your Star Vault Taoism sect is going to make a fool of itself in the sect competition in the fire spirit state. At that time, your master will definitely lose face because of you. The young man's words were full of ridicule. Senior brother Emophone, there's no need to talk with a stupid girl like her. Let's hurry up and take action. Our cloud perching sect can't fall behind in this sect competition. A woman seemed to be a little impatient and reminded him. All right. Wind Void nodded. She immediately brought the group of men and women with her and charged towards the mountains in the distance. From beginning to end, she didn't pay any attention to Lin Sun. Lin Sun didn't feel anything wrong, but Xia Xiaochong seemed to be a little strange at the moment. Her eyes were red, and her big clear eyes were filled with tears. She seemed to be very sad. These guys are indeed a little rude. Do you want me to help you teach them a lesson? Asked Lin Sun. He couldn't bear to see the girl's pitiful appearance. Xia Xiaochong shook her head and said in a low mood, I don't care about their ridicule. I'm just worried that this training will make my master lose face. He has always been very good to me. I don't want him to be disappointed. Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, Can you tell me what the sect competition is all about? He had secretly decided that if possible, he wouldn't mind helping this girl once. Xia Xiaochong took a deep breath and rubbed the tears in her eyes with her hands. She tried hard to calm herself down, and then she told Lin Sun about the so-called sect competition. P.S. Sorry, the update is a little late. The reason is that when I reread Rune Emperor tonight, I was unconsciously fascinated by it. For the fastest updated website, please visit, or directly visit the website. Chapter 771. The so-called sect competition was actually very simple. It was a competition jointly organized by the 4 sects and 3 clans in the fire spirit state. The 4 sects referred to the Thousand Illusion Dao sect, Pine Sword sect, Lingji sect, and Zhongshuan sect. They were the 4 most powerful sects in the fire spirit state in the West Heng world. Each of them had a half-step king realm cultivator and countless disciples. They were extremely famous in the fire spirit state. The 3 clans referred to the Lu, Shao, and Wen clans. In terms of foundation, the 3 clans were only slightly weaker than the 4 sects, but they were still the overlord-level forces in the fire spirit state. The sect competition was organized by the 4 sects and 3 clans, and it was a trial for the younger generation of cultivators. The location was this Purple Bull Mountain. The time limit was 1 month. The content of the trial was very simple. It was to kill fierce beasts in the mountain and obtain their souls. When the result of the trial was out, the disciples of each sect would be ranked according to the number of fierce beasts' souls they obtained. The higher the ranking of each sect's disciple, the more generous the reward would be. For the disciples who participated in the trial, the ranking was not only a reward, but it was also a kind of honor. It was enough to make one's name spread across the entire fire spirit state. After understanding all this, Lin Sun roughly understood the situation. However, he was still puzzled. This was a trial for the younger generation of cultivators from the 4 sects and 3 clans in the fire spirit state. Xia Xiaochong came from the Star Vault Taoist sect. She did not belong to any of the 7 sects, so why would she participate? My master asked me to participate, so I came. Xia Xiaochong looked very confused. She did not understand all this. Lin Sun was speechless, but he could roughly guess that Xia Xiaochong's master must have used some tricks to allow Xia Xiaochong to participate in this trial. Since Xia Xiaochong's master could do this, he naturally could not be an ordinary person. So, You are representing the entire Star Vault Taoist sect to compete with the other 7 sects? Lin Sun's expression was a little strange. Yes. Xia Xiaochong nodded. She did not feel anything wrong. This girl is really a silly little girl, Lin Sun said. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that it was impossible for Xia Xiaochong to achieve a good result in this trial. After all, she was only one person, and her cultivation was only at the complete Sea of Souls tier. On the other hand, the disciples of the other 7 great powers had formed groups that were participating in the trials, and there were many that possessed cultivations that were higher than Xia Xiaochong. When compared like this, Xia Xiaochong was in a disadvantageous position in the trials since a long time ago. Master said that as long as I can fill the mid-grade spirit condensation pearl in my hand with soul force at the end of the trial, it'll be fine. I thought it would be easy, but who knew? Xia Xiaochong was very depressed. Looks like her master knows that this test is a little difficult for her. That's why he made such a low request. Thinking of this, Lin said, "Isn't there still 10 days before the end of the trial? Let me help you." Unexpectedly, Xia Xiaochong shook his head. "My master said that I can only do my own things." Lin Sun was in a daze and said with a smile, "Okay, I'll follow you." Of course. Xia Xiaochong raised her innocent little face and revealed a bright smile, bright and innocent. The Purple Ox Mountain stretched for thousands of miles, primitive and lush. According to Xia Xiaochong, the Purple Ox Mountain could be regarded as a treasure land of spiritual beauty. However, there were many fierce beasts in the mountain, and there was no lack of extremely fierce and terrifying creatures, so it had never been occupied by human forces. Before coming to the Purple Ox Mountain, the disciples who participated in this trial had been warned that they were only allowed to hunt in the periphery of the Purple Ox Mountain. Because in the depths of the Purple Ox Mountain, there was a real monster king, which was comparable to the existence of the half-step king realm. Its strength was extremely terrifying. No wonder I didn't see any fierce beasts along the way. They must have been hunted by those disciples who participated in the trial, Lin Sun suddenly understood. Moreover, along the way, he also found some traces of fighting. There were blood stains and remains of demonic beasts lying in the wilderness. You can't hunt at all if you go forward like this. Lin Sun couldn't help reminding her. Ah! Xia Xiaochong was stunned, and her beautiful little face was full of confusion. How muddle-headed she is, Lin Sun sighed with his hand on his forehead. This little girl was really a happy-go-lucky girl, carefree and carefree. Let's go, I'll take you to look for fierce beasts. Lin Sun made the decision and led the way. But how do you know I can't hunt? Xia Xiaochong hurriedly followed up and asked like a curious baby. The reason is simple. You've seen a lot of ominous beast corpses and bloodstains on the way, which proves that many people are ahead of us. Do you think we can still hunt ominous beasts if we follow them? Lin Sun explained patiently. What you said makes sense. It's simply amazing. Xia Xiaochong's clear big eyes glowed with admiration. Lin Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What's so amazing about it? Any practitioner with a little discerning ability would be able to determine it at a glance, right? Obviously, Xia Xiaochong was really an ignorant girl, and she should have never experienced such a thing before. As he spoke, Lin Sun had already sped up. Not long after, the sound of battle came from a steep mountain ahead. It seemed to be very intense, and it was filled with the dazzling light of treasures. A group of young men and women were activating their treasures and besieging 3 violent armored golden rhinoceroses. The battle was very fierce. The violent armored golden rhinoceroses were shaped like giant elephants, and their bodies were covered with golden scales. As they galloped, rocks and trees collapsed. They were extremely ferocious. In terms of strength, they were not weaker than those in Tao Insight Realm. So it's them. Lin Sun instantly recognized the group of young men and women. He had seen them before. They were from Lingji sect, one of the 4 major sects in Fire Spirit State. The young man in the lead was called Mo Feng, an outstanding talent in Tao Insight realm. This way. Lin Sun thought for a while and changed their route. He planned to take Xia Xiaochong around this place. Roar. However, there was a sudden change in the battlefield in the distance. A violent armored golden rhinoceros suddenly became furious. It rushed out of the encirclement in an instant and rushed towards Lin Sun and Xia Xiaochong. Almost at the same time, there was an angry shout in the field. Some disciples of Lingji sect chased after the violent armored golden rhinoceroses and attacked with all their strength. Rumble treasures of various colors poured down like a raging tide. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and a trace of coldness flashed between his brows. He and Xia Xiaochong were standing in this direction. They had originally planned to hide. However, there was no way to hide now. When those disciples of Lingji sect attacked, they were unscrupulous and covered the entire area. How could they hide? It would be fine if it was an unintentional move. What made Lin Sun frown was that those disciples of Lingji sect had obviously noticed him and Xia Xiaochong, but they still chose to attack them. Their attitude was very problematic. Ah! Xia Xiaochong screamed. Her reaction was obviously a beat slower. When she realized something was wrong, she saw a violent armored golden rhinoceroses rushing towards them with a violent and terrifying momentum. Behind him, attacks that blotted out the sky and covered the earth came crashing over like a tide, swoosh. In the end, Lin Sun still endured it. He instantly grabbed Xia Xiaochong's arm and used Ice Drake Step. He suddenly disappeared on the spot and dashed to the back. Boom! Almost at the same time, the violent armored golden rhinoceroses failed to escape under the overwhelming attacks and was killed. In the end, it fell to the ground less than 3 meters away from Lin Sun. Its huge body fell to the ground with a loud bang and blood gurgled out. Swish! At the same time, a disciple of Lingji sect flew over and took out a blue concentration pearl. With a gentle sweep, a blue divine rainbow swept out. A soul shadow was drawn out from the violent armored golden rhinoceros's corpse and sucked into the concentration pearl. Yo, it's you again, little bug from Starry Vault sect. Ha ha ha, look at your little face. It's pale from fear. Have you never seen such a bloody scene before? The disciple of Lingji sect put away the concentration pearl. When he saw Xia Xiaochong, he immediately roared with laughter, his expression full of ridicule. I'm not afraid. Xia Xiaochong raised her head and said loudly. Lin Sun frowned and said, Friend, don't you think you should apologize to us? Apologize? The disciple of Lingji sect dug his ears with his fingers and looked surprised. Who do you think you are? Are you qualified to ask me to apologize? At this time, the other 2 violent armored golden rhinoceroses were also killed and their souls were extracted. Mo Feng led the disciples of Lingji sect over. What's wrong? Mo Feng asked. This guy actually wants us to apologize. I wonder if he's out of his mind. How could he say such ridiculous words? The disciple of Lingji sect said with a smile. Apologize? Mo Feng raised her eyebrows. Haha, friend, you must have misunderstood. We've never offended you when we were hunting ferocious beasts here, have we? So, you don't dare to admit what you've done? Lin Sun asked indifferently. If not for him, Xia Xiaochong wouldn't have been able to avoid the attacks of the disciples of Lingji sect even if he had dodged the attack of the violent armored golden rhinoceroses. But now, he had merely asked for an apology, and these fellows actually refused to acknowledge it. Haha, friend, it seems that you have a lot of opinions about us. A cold light flashed in Mo Feng's eyes. The expressions of the other disciples of Lingji sect also became unfriendly. He was just a strange young man, but he dared to talk to them like this. Was he tired of living? Lin Sun said casually, I don't have any opinions. I just want an explanation. Since you're not willing to apologize, it's fine. Let's go, Xia Xiaochong. Speaking of this, he turned around and left with Xia Xiaochong. This was out of Mo Feng and the others' expectations. They didn't expect Lin Sun, who was so tough just a moment ago, to suddenly become a coward. Ha ha ha, he's strong on the outside but weak on the inside. It turns out that this kid was just bluffing. He's too weak. Immediately, the disciples of Lingji's sect roared with laughter, thinking that Lin Sun had retreated out of fear. A female disciple shook her head in disappointment and said, "I didn't expect him to be such a coward despite his extraordinary appearance. If he had been a little more tough just now, perhaps I would have respected him. But now it seems that this guy is just like that little worm, timid and cowardly. He looks good but is useless. This kind of trash isn't worth paying attention to at all. Let's take action quickly." Mo Feng shook his head with a smile. He couldn't see through Lin Sun previously, so he was vigilant and cautious. But now, when he saw Lin Sun swallow his anger and leave with Xia Shaochong, he immediately realized that he was overthinking. Chapter 772. Senior Brother Mo Feng, there's something wrong with that young man. On the way, a female disciple of Lingji's sect approached them with a solemn expression. Her name was Wen Firen. She was beautiful and intelligent. "What's wrong?" Mo Feng raised his eyebrows. "That young man looks harmless, but he has a terrifying aura. Moreover, I'm sure that he's also at the Tao Insight realm." Wen Firen's clear eyes were full of thought. "I don't remember such a figure in the other sects in this trial." Mo Feng frowned and said disapprovingly, "Do you think a real top figure would hang out with a stupid girl like Xia Shaochong?" Wen Firen reminded, "Maybe there's more to it." Mo Feng was a little impatient and said, "Junior Sister One, let me ask you. If he really possesses an extremely powerful strength, why did he restrain himself and retreat just now? Why didn't he dare to confront us?" Wen Firen was about to say something, but Mo Feng waved his hand and interrupted her. "There's no need to say anything. The only opponent we have to fear in this trial is Yu Jianming of the Thousand Illusion Dao sect. He's reputed as the #1 genius in the Fire Spirit province, and he's extremely powerful. He's leading the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Dao sect, so they're definitely aiming for the first place in the trial." As he finished speaking, a shadow appeared between his brows. Yu Jianming, Wen Firen sighed inwardly. When this name was mentioned, she felt an indescribable pressure as well. He was an extraordinary genius with extraordinary talent. He started cultivating at the age of 3, broke through the true martial realm at the age of 5, and ascended to the Gang Spirit realm. At the age of 9, Yu Jianming had reached the perfect Sea Spirit realm. At that time, because of this, Yu Jianming's name had shaken the entire Fire Spirit province. Now Yu Jianming's cultivation was even more unfathomable. It was said that he possessed the foundation and resources to enter the reincarnation development realm. However, he had been suppressing his realm. What he wanted was to fight for a complete path to the top in the upcoming catastrophe of the Great Tao. Who wouldn't feel pressured when facing such a dazzling opponent? It's said that a sage from the #1 force in the West Heng realm, the Profound Seeking Sword House, has recently said that the signs of the Great Tao's change have begun to descend upon the entire ancient desolation region. Mo Feng's gaze flickered. Presently, inconceivable phenomena and shocking changes have more or less occurred in every single area of the world. All of this is a sign that the curtains to the battle of the world are about to be drawn. After a pause, he continued, "Before that, we must make sufficient preparations and seize every opportunity to strengthen ourselves. Only then will we be able to fight for a place in this unprecedented world." Wen Firen listened quietly, but he knew in his heart that it was easy to say, but it was actually extremely difficult. There were countless geniuses in the world, and they were a group of dazzling stars. When the great battle of the world arrived, they would probably not have the qualifications to participate at all. After all, the Fire Spiritual Province was only one of the many provinces in the West Heng realm, and the Lingji sect was only one of the major powers in the Fire Spiritual Province. In the ancient Desolation realm, There were more than 10,000 cities in the 4 realms. There were also many small worlds and mysterious and unknown sacred hermit ground. In this way, as the disciples of the young generation of the Lingji sect in the Fire Spiritual Province, they were nothing compared with the countless geniuses in the world. When Firen was not pessimistic, but she was very clear that this was the reality. If they couldn't even see the reality clearly and wanted to participate in the great battle, it would undoubtedly be an idiot's ravings. Unfortunately, when Firen knew that neither Mo Feng nor the descendants of the Lingji sect would listen to these words. Suddenly, when Firen was stunned. Weren't they talking about the young man just now? Why did it become like this? Immediately, she couldn't help but smile bitterly to herself. Obviously, Mo Feng wouldn't listen to her warning. She could only hope that. She worried too much. They're so hateful. In the boundless mountains, Xia Xiaocheng's pure little face was full of anger. Even though she was angry, she still looked very cute, which made Lin Sun smile. By the way, are you also angry? Xia Xiaocheng asked. Lin Sun nodded. Xia Xiaocheng looked apologetic. She twisted the corner of her clothes with her little hands and said, I'm sorry. It's all because of me that you were bullied by them. Otherwise, don't follow me anymore. Crack. Lin Sun couldn't help raising his hand and knocking on Xia Xiaocheng's head. Do you know that if I hadn't been here just now, you would have been in trouble? Xia Xiaocheng looked confused. That does seem to be the case. Should I be even angrier? Was there a need to ask? Lin Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This girl was so heartless. What should we do? Should we go back to get even with them? Xia Xiaocheng looked distressed. But we can't beat them. What if we are bullied again? It's so annoying. If Master is here, he will definitely find a way. Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh as he listened to her muttering to herself with a puckered face. Well, it was obviously impossible to expect this muddle-headed girl to give him a clear answer. He'd better be a good person to the end and help the Buddha to the end. Give me your divine concentration pearl. Lin Sun said directly. Ah? What are you going to do? Xia Xiaocheng was puzzled. Listen to me. Lin Sun seemed very rude and unreasonable. Oh, Xia Xiaocheng answered and took it out obediently. Also, you just need to watch the rest of the way, understand? Xia Xiaocheng couldn't help asking again. Why? Lin Sun said grumpily. No why. Xia Xiaocheng nodded pitifully. Oh! Follow me. Lin Sun waved his sleeve and took Xia Xiaocheng back along the way they came. Their figures flashed and their speed was extremely fast. Senior brother Mo Feng, we found a group of fire-eyed berserk apes in the deep mountains ahead. In a forest, a disciple of Lingji's sect hurried back and excitedly told them a piece of good news. Immediately, Mo Feng and the others were refreshed. In this trial in Purple Ox Mountain, the disciples of the 7 forces all tried their best to compete for the final ranking. And the ranking was determined by the number of souls of fierce beasts they hunted. Unfortunately, although there were many fierce beasts suitable for hunting in the periphery of Purple Ox Mountain, there were too many disciples of the 7 forces, so there was a situation where there were too many wolves and not enough meat. In particular, this trial had reached the final stage. There were only 10 days left, and they could find fewer and fewer fierce beasts along the way. This made Mo Feng and the others secretly anxious. Therefore, it was undoubtedly good news to find a group of fire-eyed berserk apes at this time. Let's go. Mo Feng waved his hand and led the others to move. Before long, they arrived at a deep mountain. The place was covered with jagged rocks of grotesque shape. Not even a blade of grass grew, and the ground showed a strange dark blood color. At the end of the mountain, there was a huge natural cave. At this moment, there were 4 or 5 fire-eyed berserk apes patrolling nearby. Fire-eyed berserk apes were extremely fierce beasts. They were more than 3 meters tall, with copper skin and iron bones. They had a wide mouth and tusks. Their hair was as thick as steel needles, and their limbs were thick and long. Their blood-red pupils were like burning flames, full of violent spirit. Great! This should be the nest of the fire-eyed berserk apes. If we seize the opportunity, we might be able to wipe them all out. Mo Feng, who led the group, was overjoyed. The other disciples of Spirit Pearl sect beamed with joy as well. The fire-eyed berserk ape's strengths were at most at the spirit ocean realm, and it suited their taste. Roar! The numerous fire-eyed berserk apes before the cave in the distance noticed the danger, and they let out thunderous roars that sounded like the wails of ghosts and the howls of wolves. Kill! Mo Feng shouted loudly in high spirits and complacency. He withdrew a brilliant golden saber, and his figure moved like a horse as he led the charge. However, he'd just raised his foot when he saw the figures of the 5 fire-eyed berserk apes before the cave in the distance suddenly stiffen in unison, and then they fell to the ground with a thump. Blood flowed out from their necks and dyed the ground red. The pupils of Mo Feng and the others constricted. They were taken by surprise by this sudden scene, and they were stunned on the spot. In next to no time, a handsome figure walked out slowly from the cave in their field of vision. "It's you!" Mo Feng cried out in surprise, and his expression changed slightly. The other disciples of Spirit Pearl sect recognized him as well. "Isn't this the coward that we scared away earlier? Why is he here all of a sudden?" When Firen's heart skipped a beat, and he realized that the situation was not good. That person was naturally Lin Sun. After he appeared, he took out the concentration pearl, and with a gentle sweep, the soul of the dead fire-eyed berserk ape was extracted and drawn into the concentration pearl. After that, he turned around and was about to leave without looking at Mo Feng and the others. "Stand out!" Mo Feng shouted sternly with a gloomy face. They'd gone through great difficulty to find a cave of fire-eyed berserk apes, but Lin Sun had beaten them to it. How could he tolerate this? In particular, Lin Sun had been scared away by them just now, and they'd regarded him as a good-for-nothing coward. But such a coward had snatched away the prey that they'd set their eyes on right under their noses. How could they tolerate this? "Boy, how dare you snatch our prey? Are you tired of living? Get over here and leave the concentration pearl behind. If you dare to leave today, believe it or not, we'll break your legs." The other disciples of Spirit Pearl sect also scolded Lin Sun in an unfriendly manner, and their words were rude and unscrupulous. They were really angry. The prey that they'd set their eyes on had turned into nothing in the end, which made them all furious. Swish! Lin Sun's figure flickered as if he hadn't heard them at all. He drifted away at a high speed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. By the time Mo Feng caught up with him, Lin Sun had already disappeared. "Damn it! This guy runs faster than a rabbit." Mo Feng's face darkened, and he gnashed his teeth in extreme resentment. "When I catch him next time, I'll definitely peel off his skin." The other disciples of Spirit Pearl sect were also full of anger, and they all cursed loudly. How dare a coward snatch their prey? This was obviously a blatant provocation. Chapter 773. Since he had run away, it was useless to scold him. This made Mo Feng and the others gnash their teeth with hatred. They swore to themselves that if they encountered that young man again, they would teach him an unforgettable lesson. Seeing this, when Firen had to remind them, "Senior brother Mo Feng, this might be the young man's revenge, and it's just the beginning." Revenge? He's just a piece of trash who only dares to steal from us. How dare he talk nonsense about revenge? Mo Feng felt that it was absurd, and he said coldly, "Junior sister, don't talk about these useless things in the future. In the Fire Spirit Province, besides you Jianming and a few others, I don't know anyone who dares to offend us." Once he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve and left. When Firen couldn't help but sigh when he saw this. A few hours later, Wind Void and the others appeared at the waist of a mountain. There was a gigantic black nest built on the precipice of this place. A group of blue-eyed fire crows with fiery red wings were flying in the air, and they let out strange cries. 16 adult blue-eyed fire crows. It'll be a great harvest if we can capture all of them in one fell swoop. One of the disciples of Lingji's sect became spirited. Attack. Mo Feng's mood became much better, and he became spirited again. Kill. They were brimming with killing intent. But before they could even approach, they saw the numerous jade-eyed flame crows on the precipitous precipice, as if they were possessed, falling down from the sky and rustling as they fell to the ground. This, Mo Feng and the others' pupils constricted, and they looked surprised and bewildered. Could it be that the young man attacked before them again? Sure enough, they guessed right. In their field of vision, they saw Lin Sun's figure walking out of the huge nest leisurely. He held the concentration pearl in his hand that emitted a dark blue light, and with a sweep of it, more than 10 souls of the blue-eyed fire crows were extracted. Damn it! It's really him! One of the practitioners shouted furiously. Bang! Mo Feng was even more direct. He didn't say anything. As soon as he saw Lin Sun, he attacked brazenly with a golden saber in his hand. The void shattered, and a long and narrow gap was torn open by the saber. The air wailed, and it was easy to imagine how powerful this attack was. From this, it could be seen how furious Wind Void was. Perhaps they had been careless the first time they were intercepted, but if the other party succeeded in intercepting them the second time, it would be no different from slapping their faces. Boom! The blade light was like a golden ray of light, and it swiftly slashed the enormous lair in the distance into two. Even the rocky cliff was slashed apart, causing rocks to shoot out in all directions while the mountain collapsed. Rumbling resounded incessantly while dust and dirt shot into the sky. However, Lin Sun had already disappeared from the field. This caused all the Lingji sect disciples to be flabbergasted. Is that kid born in the year of the rabbit? He runs faster than anyone else. As for Wind Void, he was so depressed that he almost coughed up blood. He had seized all the time he had to attack, but he had never expected that his opponent would still escape. This caused him to instantly feel aggrieved with nowhere to vent, and his expression changed indeterminately. Once again, he was intercepted. Mo Feng wasn't stupid. He immediately realized that Wen Firen was right. The young man must be taking revenge. When he thought up to here, not only did Mo Feng not calm down, he became even more infuriated. He was a dignified genius of the Lingji sect, and he was a renowned genius in the fire spirit state. When had he ever been treated like this? He's really courting death. Mo Feng's eyes were ghastly and overflowed with killing intent. Strange. If he noticed the jade-eyed flame crows before us, then why didn't he kill them as soon as possible? Instead, he waited for us to appear before making a move? Isn't that stupid? One of the Lingji sect disciples had a bewildered expression. Slap. As soon as he finished speaking, he suffered a slap on the head, and then Wind Void roared, "Idiot! What the hell is strange about that? Can't you tell that he's taking revenge on us on purpose?" The Lingji sect disciple had an aggrieved expression as he covered his swollen face and didn't dare speak another word. A little bastard that came out of nowhere actually dares to point his finger at us? This is intolerable. We must punish him severely. Someone suggested angrily. Exactly. When has our Lingji sect disciples been provoked like this in the fire spirit state? If news of this were to spread, then wouldn't we become the laughingstock of the fire spirit state? In my opinion, that kid isn't a disciple of the 4 sects and 3 clans. Otherwise, he would definitely not dare to act so rashly. This is good as well. At least we don't have to worry when we kill him. Kill him? That's letting him off too lightly. I'm going to grind his bones into ashes, pull out his tendons, and peel off his skin so that the fellow Taoists of the fire spirit state won't laugh at our Lingji sect for not having anyone capable. The other Lingji sect disciples spoke successively as well. All of them were infuriated. Their prey had been robbed twice in a row, and it had even happened right under their noses. This was clearly a provocation. Junior Sister One, what do you think? Mo Feng suddenly asked. The reason he's taking revenge is because he resents us for almost implicating him and Xia Shaochong when we were dealing with the violent armored golden rhino. He probably only wants an apology from us. I think if we... Mo Feng immediately understood what Wen Firen was going to say, and she instantly frowned and said with displeasure, "You want us to apologize? Don't even think about it." What a joke! A young man of unknown origin had provoked them twice in a row and robbed their prey right under their noses. Under such circumstances, he still wanted them to apologize? If news of this were to spread, would they have any face left? Senior Sister One, when have we, the disciples of Lingji sect, ever been afraid of anyone? This kid has provoked us repeatedly, so we must retaliate with the most ruthless methods. Otherwise, not only us, even the reputation of our Lingji sect will be shamed. That's right. Senior Sister One, don't tell me you're afraid? The other Lingji sect disciples were very displeased. They felt that Wen Firen was being overly cautious and shouldn't have done so. Wen Firen puckered her lips in silence, and there was an indescribable feeling of powerlessness in her heart. No matter how big the fire spirit state was, it was only a state in the Westheng region. If she thought she could look down on everyone in the world just because she was the disciple of Lingji sect, then was she any different from a frog in a well? Not to mention that the young man's background might be unknown, but how could an ordinary person compare to him for being able to rob their prey twice in a row right under their noses? However, Wen Firen was disheartened and couldn't be bothered to explain. She even had a strong premonition that the following operation was bound to not be peaceful. Sure enough, reality was just as Wen Firen had expected. In the next few days, all the prey that they had painstakingly found was snatched away by the youth without exception. Moreover, all the prey they'd found right under their noses. These successive blows caused the moods of Mo Feng and the others to be extremely bad, and their expressions were extremely unsightly. Take revenge. The most depressing thing to them was that they weren't able to kill the young man every single time, and they could only watch helplessly as the young man left. That sort of feeling caused them to be on the verge of going mad with rage. This fellow is formidable indeed. At the very least, he can absolutely be said to be extraordinary when it comes to fleeing. Someone spoke with ridicule. Is he only capable of fleeing so easily? Mo Feng's emotions surged. At this moment, no matter how stupid he was, he'd realized that he'd offended a formidable and ferocious figure this time. When he thought up to here, a wisp of regret couldn't help but surge into his heart. At that time, he'd almost accidentally allowed the battle to affect that fellow. Who could have imagined that the situation would develop to such an extent? Senior brother, we haven't obtained a single ferocious beast soul for 4 days in a row, and only 6 days remain before the end of the trials. If this continues, then it's very likely that our ranking in the trials will be at the bottom. Someone was filled with worry. Mo Feng's mood instantly became terrible when he heard this. Originally, with their strengths, no matter how bad they were, they would still be able to gain the upper hand in the competition between the disciples of the 7 great powers. Moreover, only Yu Jiaming's group from the Thousand Illusion Dao sect was capable of making them feel fearful and pressured. Yet now, because of the revenge of a young man, everything had changed. Senior brother, in the last 2 days, the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Dao sect, Pine Tree Sword sect, Heavy Profundity sect, and the Lu, Shao, and Wen clans have been watching us make a fool of ourselves. They're taking pleasure in our misfortune and wish for the world to be in chaos. They're simply too detestable. Someone spoke furiously. Mo Feng felt a headache when he heard this, and he was angered to the point of almost going berserk. Why is there so much bad news? Since we encountered that young man, we simply seem as if we've encountered great misfortune, and everything goes wrong. Senior brother. There was still someone who wanted to say something, but he was instantly interrupted by Mo Feng. He really couldn't hear any more bad news, and he had the impulse to go berserk. After a long time, Mo Fong glanced at Wenfiren, who was silent in the distance, and he sighed. Looks like Junior Sister One was right a few days ago. If we want to change this situation, then we must have a good talk with that fellow. On this evening, a group of blood-soul lions and tigers were patrolling in a verdant and luxuriant gorge, and a murderous aura covered the surroundings. This was the territory of blood-soul lions and tigers. Mo Fong and the others had arrived, but when they saw these blood-soul lions and tigers this time, they weren't happy at all. On the contrary, their expressions seemed to be very complicated, and the gazes they shot at the blood-soul lions and tigers carried an indescribable feeling. They didn't have the slightest desire to make a move because they knew that these prey would be taken away right before their eyes. As expected, a familiar scene took place. Those blood-soul lions and tigers soon died on the spot in a strange way, and then a familiar figure that made Mo Fong and the others go mad with hatred once again leisurely appeared in their field of vision. But this time, Mo Fong and the others didn't curse, attack, or get angry. Only their expressions became more complicated, and they felt sad and aggrieved. "My friend, please stay. We want to talk to you," Mo Fong said bitterly. When he said this, there was an indescribable sense of shame in his heart, and he felt very aggrieved and helpless, which made him unconsciously clench his fists. He secretly swore in his heart that when the test was over, no matter what, he would get rid of this guy who brought them endless shame. Talk. This time, Lin Sun didn't act immediately. He stood there and looked at Mo Fong with a faint smile. "Yes, talk, Mo Fong took a deep breath and said with difficulty. His heart was twitching, because he felt like he was lowering his head and begging for mercy, which was full of unspeakable shame. But before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Lin Sun. "Now you've decided to apologize? You don't have any sincerity at all. Show me your sincerity next time." With that, Lin Sun floated away once again. The Lingji sect disciples were completely dumbfounded. P.S. From tomorrow onwards, I will continue to update 6 times and repay all the debts I owed since the new year. Chapter 774. The disciples of Lingji sect were indeed dumbfounded. They had endured the great anger and humiliation in their hearts before they decided to talk with Lin Sun. In their opinion, they had made enough concessions and were very sincere, but Lin Sun had rejected them directly? Instantly, even Mo Fong was so angry that his face turned green. This was too much. As the successor of Lingji sect, it was humiliating enough to lower their heads to a young man of unknown origin, but now Lin Sun didn't appreciate it at all. "I'm going to kill him!" a hot-tempered man roared. He was so angry that he was going crazy. Does he really think that we, Lingji sect, can't do anything to him? The others were also angry. But do you think we can deal with him? Wenfiren couldn't stand it anymore. He sighed softly and said, "Every time, he could snatch the prey right in front of us without being noticed. Every time, he could snatch the prey right under our noses and then swagger away. From the beginning to the end, no one could stop him even once. Do you think an ordinary practitioner could do that?" His words made the others' expressions change, and they were shocked and bewildered. They weren't stupid, but they had been so angry that they didn't think about it calmly. Now that they thought about it, they suddenly realized something unusual. The atmosphere was a little gloomy. "It's very difficult to kill him in Purple Ox Mountain." Mo Fong took a deep breath and said softly, "It's very difficult." This undoubtedly meant that he admitted that even he couldn't kill Lin Sun. The others were shocked. Mo Fong was a top figure among the younger generation of Lingji sect. Even he couldn't do this, so it was imaginable how powerful that boy was. "I remember that there's a deep pool about 300 miles away from here. There's a blackwater python in the deep pool, and its strength is comparable to that of a reincarnation developing realm cultivator. It's extremely terrifying." Suddenly, someone's eyes lit up, and he made a suggestion. "If we go closer, Maybe we can kill him with a borrowed knife. The others were stunned at first, but they immediately understood and became spirited. Great! Doesn't that boy always steal our prey one step ahead of us? In that case, let's pretend to deal with the mysterious water python. Let's see if that boy really dares to challenge a terrifying creature comparable to a grand practitioner of the reincarnation development realm. Someone slapped his thigh and exclaimed, "But what if he sees that the situation is bad and doesn't show up?" Someone raised a doubt. After all, that kid isn't an idiot. How could he appear when he sensed the presence of the Blackwater python? However, Wind Void's eyes shone brightly. She gritted her teeth and said, "That means he's afraid. It's even better if he doesn't appear. We can take this opportunity to kill that Blackwater python together." What? The others were shocked. They had never thought of doing this. Over the past few days, we haven't even been able to obtain a single ferocious beast soul. Even if that kid doesn't obstruct us in the next few days, I'm afraid that we won't be able to occupy any advantage in the rankings at the end of the test. Wind Void's gaze was calm. So, we must make a change. If we're able to kill that dark water python and obtain its soul, then the value we'll obtain from killing a few dozen Grotto Heaven Realm ferocious beasts is even greater. Moreover, if we act together, we might encounter some dangers, but I'm confident that we'll be able to do it. When Wind Void finished speaking, a wisp of confidence appeared between her brows, and she seemed very conceited. "Then let's do it." When the others saw this, they hesitated for a moment before gritting their teeth and agreeing. Wealth came from danger. Moreover, this operation was related to the final rankings of the test. How could they not risk it? The deep pool where the Blackwater python resided was already close to the depths of the Purple Ox Mountain. This place was different from the periphery. There was an oppressive aura in the air. When Wind Void and the others arrived, they were also extremely nervous. The deep pool was hundreds of feet wide. The water was as black as ink, and the surface of the pool was covered with wisps of bone-chilling white mist. Before they even got close, they felt chills all over their bodies. Wind Void and the others were all on guard, as if they were facing a great enemy. They took out their trump cards and did not dare to be careless. At the bottom of the pool, there was a Blackwater python that was comparable to a reincarnation evolution realm cultivator. Ordinary cultivators did not dare to get close. Even the descendants of the 4 sects and 3 clans, the 7 great forces, would not easily come here unless it was necessary. Haha, that kid must be afraid. He doesn't dare to show up this time. Someone sneered with a hint of disdain. The others also laughed. Only when Firen sighed inwardly. The descendants of the Spirit Sphere sect now had to rely on a ferocious beast to regain their dignity. Wasn't this a kind of sorrow? Everyone, be careful. There is bound to be a fierce battle later. Wind Void's eyes were vigilant, and he reminded everyone to be ready for battle. Then, he took the lead and approached the deep pool. Boom! However, before they could get close, the deathly still pool suddenly boiled, and the water surface surged violently. A huge ferocious beast rushed out. It was hundreds of feet long, and its body was as black as ink. It meandered like a black waterfall, and its head was as big as a small hill. Its eyes were like a pair of huge lanterns, as red as blood, and its snow-white fangs were like a pair of sharp knives, shining with a frightening cold light. Its huge and long body was entrenched in the void, surrounded by water light. Its ferocious aura was almost tangible, and it submerged the whole world. The Blackwater python. It had actually appeared one step ahead of them. In an instant, the expressions of Wind Void and the others changed dramatically. They had originally planned to launch a sneak attack, but obviously the situation had changed. A bunch of rubbish. You can't defeat others, so you come to me to court death? It hissed coldly, and its blood-red eyes were full of disdain. Why did its words sound so strange? Wind Void and the others were stunned. They dared to swear that they had never seen this ferocious beast before, But how did it know that they couldn't defeat others? Could it be that the boy had already been here? And he had said some bad things about them in front of the python? At the thought of this, Wind, Void, and the others were so angry that their noses were crooked, and their expressions became very interesting. What? You're not convinced that you're rubbish? You're arrogant and conceited because of the prestige of your sect. People like you are even worse than rubbish. The Blackwater python's voice rumbled, and it resounded through the world like thunder. It spread very far, as if it wanted the whole world to hear it. Shut up. You're courting death, you evil creature. Wind Void was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. He was sure that Lin Sun had been here long ago and had communicated with the python. Humph, I'm in a bad mood today, so I'll vent my anger on you. As the python spoke, there was a rumble, and its body, which was as thick as a bucket, smashed through the void like a heavenly iron whip. Suddenly, the nearby mountains collapsed, rocks flew everywhere, and the void turned into a chaotic torrent that raged. The weather changed, and the sky darkened. Not good. Wind Void's scalp went numb, and he realized that something was wrong. Their judgment had been wrong. The python's strength was too shocking, and it was not something an ordinary reincarnation developing realm cultivator could compare to. Even in the reincarnation developing realm, it was a ferocious existence. Run! Wind Void roared. His heart was about to explode. He had thought that this time, without Lin Sun in his way, he could take the opportunity to hunt down a big prey and change their situation in the trial. Unexpectedly, the situation changed again and again. Not only had the python appeared in advance, but it also seemed to have communicated with Lin Sun, which caught them off guard. What made them feel like they were on the verge of collapse was that the python's strength was too terrifying. Run! Wind Void was filled with grief and indignation. He felt that he was extremely unlucky. However, the mysterious water python laughed disdainfully. If I let you escape today, who will vent my anger on me? Boom! Accompanied by the earth-shattering laughter, the mysterious water python opened its mouth and spat out a ray of water. It was like a galaxy pouring down, instantly turning the area into a vast ocean. Wind Void and the others did not have time to escape, and their bodies were drowned in it. Then, the mysterious water python's figure flashed and turned into an 8-feet-tall man with a thick beard and a pair of big eyes. He rushed into the rolling waves. Smack! He raised his hand and slapped a Lingji sect disciple away. The latter screamed as his teeth fell and blood spurted out of his mouth and nose. How dare you bully others with such little ability? Bah! If it was in the past, trash like you would not even be enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. The mysterious water python spat fiercely, full of disdain. Then, its figure flickered as it punched and kicked, stirring up waves in the water. The descendants of Lingji sect were sent flying in the air, crying and screaming. For a moment, the world was filled with shrill screams and the mysterious water python's disdainful and arrogant laughter. It was hair-raising. Wind Void did have something to rely on, but he had made a wrong judgment this time. He did not expect the mysterious water python to be a ruthless character in the reincarnation development realm. He was immediately beaten into a daze. What drove him crazy was that the mysterious water python, whether intentionally or not, was specifically slapping them in the face. The sound of slapping was endless. The Lingji sect disciples were slapped until their heads were red and swollen like pigs. Tears and snot flowed down their faces, and their heads were swollen. Even Wind Void suffered the same treatment. Previously, he was elegant and outstanding, and could be considered a handsome and distinguished person. But now, his nose and face were swollen, and his hair was disheveled. Even his biological parents would not be able to recognize him if they were here. This was undoubtedly a form of humiliation. The mysterious water python humiliated and tortured them with brutal force, trampling on their pride and dignity. Wind, Void, and the others were so ashamed and furious that they wanted to die. They were so angry that they were about to cry. Compared to the physical injuries, the shame in their hearts was undoubtedly more intense. The unprecedented sense of humiliation made them want to slit their own throats and commit suicide. It was too embarrassing. They'd originally come to Violet Ox Mountain to train and hunt ferocious beasts, yet now they'd been slapped violently by a freakish python, humiliated and ravaged. As disciples of the Spirit Pearl sect, they'd never experienced such a feeling. The mysterious water python seemed to be tired. It swung its arms and rubbed its fingers. It said impatiently, "Damn it, you are really thick-skinned. My hands are sore from hitting you. Get lost. Remember, keep a low profile in the future. Don't be arrogant, or you won't even know how you die." Chapter 775. The Blackwater Python put his hands on his hips, looking very arrogant. Even though Mo Fong and the others were furious and embarrassed to death, they could only flee with their tails between their legs in the end. However, there was a question in their hearts. Why didn't the python kill them? Of course, they didn't dare to ask. They wished their parents had given them 2 more ways, so they left in a hurry. Splash in the pool, the waves suddenly rolled, and a handsome figure emerged. It was Lin Sun. "Child, are you satisfied?" However, the majestic Xianshui giant python now showed a flattering expression and went over, nodding and bowing like a lackey. If Mo Fong and others saw this, they would be so angry that they would vomit blood. "You just said that you were in a bad mood and wanted to vent your anger on them. Do you resent me?" Lin Sun put his hands behind his back and glanced at the big demon with his black eyes indifferently. The Blackwater python became stiff and its smile froze. It shook its head quickly. "No, no, you misunderstood me." But it was quite sad in its heart. As a Blackwater python, a big demon in Zinnia Mountain who could summon wind and rain, he didn't even care about the great practitioners in reincarnation developing realm. But just before Mo Fong and others came, it was beaten up by the young man in front of it without any hesitation. It didn't even have the strength to fight back. It was even forced by the young man to help teach those guys a lesson, which made the Blackwater python feel a kind of unspeakable grievance. "Brother Lin, you are so powerful that even such a big demon obeys you." Next to him, Xia Xiaocheng's eyes were shining, and her pure face was full of admiration. Hearing this, the Blackwater python almost burst into tears. Damn it, as a big demon in reincarnation developing realm, he became a supporting role. Was there any big demon in the world more unlucky than him? If this was spread out, how could he be a demon in Zinnia Mountain? "You did a good job this time. I'll spare you." As soon as Lin Sun said this, the Blackwater python breathed a sigh of relief. He was really worried that Lin Sun would kill him after he left the millstone. "Brother Lin, my concentration pearl is full. Shall we still rob their prey?" Xia Xiaocheng asked. "Full." Lin Sun was in a daze. Only then did he realize that he had helped Xia Xiaocheng store the power of the concentration pearl by accident while robbing the prey of Wind Void and others these days. "Can you end the test now?" Lin Sun asked. "I can't," Xia Xiaocheng said in distress. "I didn't do it myself. If Master knew, he would definitely scold me." "Then do you still have the divine condensation pearl?" Lin Sun admired Xia Xiaocheng's persistence very much. This was a very good moral character. Only with perseverance could one go further on the path of cultivation. "Ah no." Xia Xiaocheng became even more distressed. Her delicate and pure little face was scrunched up in a frown. "I do." However, the Blackwater python at the side took out a pile of dark blue and translucent soul condensation pearls as if it was presenting a treasure, and it courteously handed it over. "Young master and young miss, please accept it." There were over 10 of these soul condensation pearls, and every single one of them was the size of a chicken egg. They were translucent, crystalline, and suffused with a cold and obscure sheen. They were extremely beautiful. Where did you get so many divine condensation pearls? Lin Sun was surprised. The Blackwater Python said embarrassedly, there were many practitioners who came to Purple Ox Mountain to explore in the past. These pearls were taken from them. Lin Sun immediately understood that those practitioners must have been killed by this big python. However, he didn't feel anything wrong. There were thousands of races in the ancient Desolation territory, and demonic practitioners were also one of them. Conflicts and killings between them were common. Was it possible that only practitioners were allowed to hunt the beasts, and the beasts were not allowed to fight back? This was obviously impossible. Lin Sun thought for a while and said, "Well, I won't take your things for free. Take this secret method as a reward." As he said, he took out a bone book overflowing with purple light and handed it to the Blackwater Python. Black Flood Dragon Devouring Skill? The Blackwater Python was shocked. At a glance, it knew that this secret method was extraordinary. It was very likely to be an ancient book passed down for a long time. I have to remind you that this is the ancestral secret method of the Black Flood Dragon clan. If it is leaked, it may bring you unexpected disasters. If you don't want to accept it, I can exchange it for other things. Lin Sun explained casually. He still had a lot of such secret methods, such as Panwu Sutra of the Bloody Lion clan, Freedom Swallowing Skill of the Dragon Whale clan, Real Thunder Hammering Skill of the Mighty Ox clan, Liujia Demon Seal Scripture of the Cloud Dragon clan, and so on. They were all the trophies Lin Sun obtained from the saints of various races when he wandered in the secret realm of Demon Saint in the depths of the Soul Oblivion Sea. Each secret method belonged to the secret method of each race. It contained the essence of Tao and was invaluable. But if it was leaked, it would inevitably lead to unimaginable disasters. No need, no need. The Blackwater Python was so happy that it scratched its ears and cheek. The secret method of the Black Flood Dragon clan was related to the secret of transforming into a dragon, and the Tao pursued by the Blackwater Python was also related to transforming into a dragon. It could be said that with this Black Flood Dragon Devouring Skill, the Blackwater Python didn't have to worry about not being able to touch the threshold of transforming into a dragon. It was no different from getting a great opportunity. "Thank you, child. Thank you, child." The Blackwater Python thanked Lin Sun again and again. Lin Sun just did a little favor and got a secret method. The reward was so rich and unimaginable. He even suspected that the handsome young man in front of him might come from a Taoist orthodoxy with a terrifying background. Otherwise, how could Lin Sun easily suppress him with the cultivation of Tao Insight Realm? How could he casually take out such an amazing secret method? Thinking of this, the Blackwater Python suddenly thought of something and said, "Child, are you also here for a chance in Xinyu Mountain?" Lin Sun was stunned. What chance? The Blackwater Python explained, "A few days ago, there was a shocking change in the depths of Xinyu Mountain. There was a brilliant light falling from the sky. I heard from a demonic friend that there was a large formation left from ancient times unearthed there. This formation was based on the natural congealing jade. It communicated with the power of the sun and the moon and absorbed the breath of the Tao of heaven and earth. It was filled with the real holy power. According to my friend, it's extremely likely that there's some sort of great fortune hidden within the mysterious formation." "Oh!" Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. A large formation that could communicate with the power of the sun and the moon and was filled with the holy aura was not simple. It's a pity that the formation in that place is so mysterious that it can't be opened. Besides, it has long been occupied by Ku Ting. The Ku Ting Old Monster is a half-step king warrior in this Purple Bull Mountain. His power is horrifying. A couple of days ago, a reincarnation evolution realm master from the Zhongxian martial school came to explore, but he was killed by the old monster. When Lin Sun mentioned Ku Ting, the Blackwater Python showed a deep fear. Obviously, Ku Ting was an extremely terrible character. According to what I know, It won't be long before the 4 sects and 3 clans of the fire spirit state send their experts here to compete with old freak Ku Ting for the fortune. If you're not here for the fortune, it's better for you to leave as soon as possible to avoid being dragged into the chaos. The Blackwater Python kindly reminded Lin Sun. It seems that this chance is really great. Lin Sun said thoughtfully. Yeah, it's said that all of this is related to the catastrophe of the Grand Tao that's about to arrive. The heavens and the earth will undergo a great change, and some fortuitous opportunities that have been buried and forgotten will appear. Some unexpected calamities will appear along with it. Not only the fire spirit state, the West Hung world, but the entire ancient desolation will welcome an unprecedented change. The Xianshui giant python sighed. He was deeply worried and thought that when the catastrophe of the Great Path arrived, fortune and disaster would come hand in hand and the future would be unpredictable. Lin Sun also had the same feeling. When he was in the lower worlds, he'd heard many things about the catastrophe of the Grand Tao. No matter if it was the ruins of End in the depths of the Soul Oblivion Sea, the burial of the Path Sea, or the mulberry forest in the bloodthirsty battlefield, all of them were experiencing some sort of irreversible change. For example, under the sacred island of 5 elements in the demonic saint's secret land in the ultimate, there was a sealed child, who was awakening his power in a deep sleep. This child was silently guarded by an old ape who had stepped into the divine path. When the great Tao disaster came and the great battle began, he would come out. What was certain was that these were the signs of the coming great Tao disaster. Not long after, Lin Sun bid farewell and left with Xia Shaochong. He was very interested in the opportunities in the depths of the Purple Ox Mountain. If possible, he wanted to see it with his own eyes. But before that, he had to help Xia Shaochong complete the trial by herself. As for Mo Feng and the others, they had suffered enough, so Lin Sun didn't want to argue with them anymore. Swish. A few hours later, Lin Sun and Xia Shaochong started to search along the way, but it was very difficult to find traces of fierce beasts. Along the way, they only found some traces of battle, and the remains of fierce beasts and blood stains. This undoubtedly proved that some fierce beasts in the periphery of the Purple Ox Mountain had probably been killed by the disciples of the 4 sects and 3 families. It seems that we can only go to the depths of the Purple Ox Mountain. Lin Sun thought for a moment and made a decision. But not long after they started, they were stopped by a man in a white robe with a thin face and bright eyes. "Friend, our senior brother Yu wants to see you. Come with me." The man in the white robe looked conceited, and his tone was indifferent, but there was a sense of command in it. These days, although Lin Sun had been retaliating against Mo Feng and the others, he also met many descendants of other forces on the way. If he remembered correctly, the man in the white robe should be from the Thousand Illusion sect, and he followed a young man named Yu Jianming. They'd met Lin Sun once. At that time, Xia Shaochong had said with admiration that Yu Jianming was the most famous genius in the Fire Spirit Province, and he was extraordinary with outstanding talent and a dazzling demeanor. Even her master had once praised that with Yu Jianming's natural talent, it was sufficient for him to compete for the Grand Tao with all the geniuses in the world that were about to arrive. "Sorry, we have business to attend to," Lin Sun said, and was about to leave with Xia Shaochong. He was not interested in being ordered to see senior brother Yu. P.S. In addition to the normal update, there will be 1 to 2 updates tonight before 9 p.m. Chapter 776. The faces of Mo Feng and the others were extremely gloomy. They were walking in a remote area for fear of being discovered by the disciples of other sections. At this moment, all of them had swollen and miserable appearances like pigs. "That beast is too much of a bully. How dare it trample on and humiliate us? When we return, we must ask the seniors of the sect to pull out his tendons, skin him alive, and grind his bones into ashes." Someone spoke with shame and indignation. "Although that beast is detestable, it didn't kill us. This is strange." If I'm not wrong, it should be that young man who instructed it to do so. When Firen analyzed, she wasn't injured, and her beautiful appearance was outstanding. She was very eye-catching among the disciples of the Spirit Pearl sect who had swollen faces and noses. It's that young man's doing? The others were surprised and bewildered. When they thought carefully about the scene when they saw the dark water python, it was indeed too strange and strange. That beast had repeatedly called them trash, disdainfully humiliated and suppressed them, and even warned them not to be arrogant in the future. However, such a great demon at the reincarnation developing stage hadn't killed them. All of this seems so strange. Humph. Junior sister one really has a discerning eye. Mo Feng snorted coldly. All of us have been humiliated, but only you are safe. I'm afraid that young man knows that you've always been thinking about him, so he instructed the dark water python to show mercy to you, right? As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of the others changed, and the way they looked at Firen changed. Indeed, Firen had been telling them not to go against that young man in the past few days. Now, all of them had suffered, but only Firen was unharmed. This was obviously not right. Firen's beautiful face changed. She opened her mouth and wanted to explain, but she didn't know how to explain, and she instantly felt bitter in her heart. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. Mo Feng didn't intend to make things too tense. He took a deep breath and said, "We absolutely can't let this matter go. No matter whether that beast was bewitched by that young man or not, it must pay the price." The others nodded. When they thought of how dignified disciples of the Spirit Pearl sect had been trampled beyond recognition by a demon beast, they had the impulse to die from shame and indignation. If news of this spread, they would become the laughingstock of the entire fire spirit state. Suddenly, Mo Feng's expression changed. He sensed an extremely familiar figure in the distance with his spirit. It was that young man. This caused his heart to skip a beat. Could it be that that fellow had come to take revenge on them again? Mo Feng was really a bit scared. She was afraid of revenge. She felt that Lin Sun was like a ghost that wouldn't go away. He was like a demon that made people hate and fear him. But very quickly, he noticed that the situation was not as he had imagined. So he was intercepted by Yang Yundu from the Thousand Illusion Dao sect. "There's going to be a good show to watch now, haha." A smile appeared on Wind Void's bruised face, making him look sinister and comical, but he did not notice it. He waved his hand and said, "Everyone, there's going to be a good show. Don't talk, follow me." Soon, the others also found Lin Sun, who was blocked. They were overjoyed and gloated over his misfortune. The Thousand Illusion Dao sect had a peerless figure like Yu Jianming overseeing it. That brat was finally going to suffer this time. They approached stealthily, intending to watch a good show. In the forest, the white-robed man was surprised to see Lin Sun refuse him directly. He was a little stunned, and then his face darkened. "How dare you refuse?" Lin Sun laughed and couldn't help saying, "Why can't I refuse? Who gave you the confidence to tell me what to do and order me around?" The white-robed man, Yang Yundu of the Thousand Illusion Dao sect, said coldly, "I'm giving you face, but you don't want it? Then don't blame me." Crack. Before he finished speaking, Lin Sun slapped Yang Yundu across the air. The slap made Yang Yundu's cheek red and swollen, and he flew out directly with stars in front of his eyes. "How dare you slander me?" Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. He had planned to keep a low profile when he first came to the ancient Desolation territory, but he found that the more low-key he was, the more people looked down upon him. Like Mo Feng and his companions before. The white-robed man from the Thousand Illusion Dao sect was the same. They were all arrogant, which made Lin Sun unable to keep a low profile even if he wanted to. He suddenly remembered a word given by the current emperor of Xiao Empire. Fight! If he wanted to fight, he should advance bravely and be fearless of all difficulties. If he didn't have such preparation, How could he compete with the other talents in the great world when the battle of the world came? You? How dare you hit me? The white-robed man was shocked and angry. He covered his red and swollen face with his hand and looked incredulous. In the distance, Mo Feng and the others also opened their eyes wide and gasped. How could this young man be so fierce that he slapped Yang Yundu without saying a word? What frightened them most was that Yang Yundu, who was also an extremely powerful hero in the Tao Insight realm, couldn't even block this slap, which was too shocking. If you dare to slander me again, believe it or not, I dare to kill you again, Lin Sun said calmly, but there was a cold, killing intent in his eyes, and an invisible and terrifying aura spread from him. Yang Yundu shuddered and felt an unprecedented pressure, which almost suffocated him. In his eyes, the handsome young man in the distance seemed to have become a different person, and his killing intent was like a surging tide. He was like a king that walked through mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and he was boundlessly terrifying. The white-robed man trembled all over, his teeth chattered, and his mind was awed. His scalp went numb, and he felt great terror. Although he was slightly arrogant, he still had discerning eyes, and he instantly determined that he'd bitten off more than he could chew this time. That young man wasn't an ordinary figure. He was obviously a ruthless person who'd caused countless bloody storms. On the other hand, Mo Feng and the others finally realized how terrifying Lin Sun was this time. Although they were extremely far away, when they sensed the terrifying killing intent that suffused Lin Sun's body at this moment, it caused them to feel horrified and uncomfortable. He was too strong. Only now did they realize that instead of saying that Lin Sun was taking revenge on them, it was better to say that he was deliberately teasing them, because just by relying on such killing intent and power, if he wanted to take revenge on them, it wouldn't be so troublesome at all, and he could directly suppress them. Even the extremely arrogant and conceited Mo Feng had to admit this at this moment. This caused their hearts to go cold. Originally, they were thinking about how to take revenge on Lin Sun, yet now, they were shaken. No matter how ferocious he is, he's caused great trouble this time. Yang Yundu is the person that Yu Jianming trusts the most, so how could it be easy to slap his face? Mo Feng gritted his teeth. Just wait and see. This kid's actions will surely cause him to suffer Yu Jianming's suppression. As if to prove his guess, in the next moment, a wave of the sound of the air being torn apart resounded from afar. A golden ray of light tore through the sky like an arched bridge, and it seemed illusory and dreamlike as it rained down a rain of light. A group of men and women stood upright on the divine ray of light. The person in the lead was a young man with black hair that hung loosely on his shoulders, violet clothes, and a jade belt around his waist, and he had a dignified and elegant bearing. He had slanted brows, starry eyes, an extremely handsome appearance, and skin that was clear like sheep fat. At this moment, he arrived on the divine ray of light, and he was simply like a god that had descended to the world. In contrast, the other woman by his side instantly dimmed in comparison and was completely overshadowed by his brilliance, causing him to seem even more outstanding. Yu Jianming. The hearts of Mo Feng and the others shook, and they had complicated feelings. This was the most dazzling and peerless genius of their fire spirit state. He was extremely talented and stunning, and he was like a leader in the younger generation of the 4 sects and 3 clans. Similarly, he was the opponent that Mo Feng and the others feared the most. Yu Jianming's strength could only be described as unfathomable in the younger generation. Since he'd started cultivating, there was practically no one in the same generation that could overshadow his sharpness. Yu Jianming has come. There's going to be a good show this time. No matter how ferocious that young man is, I'm afraid he'll be suppressed by Yu Jianming. The emotions of Mo Feng and the others were very subtle. They were very afraid and unconvinced of Yu Jianming, but they wished for nothing more than for Yu Jianming to show his might and kill Lin Sun. Senior brother Yu. In the distance, Yang Yundu let out a sorrowful cry, but his face was full of ecstasy and radiant, and his gaze towards Lin Sun even carried a wisp of resentment. Yu Jianming and his fellow disciples had come together, which undoubtedly allowed Yang Yundu to find his backbone and backer, and he was greatly relieved. Lin Sun also caught a glimpse of Yu Jianming, but his expression was still calm. He had even noticed that Mo Feng and the others were secretly waiting to see him make a fool of himself in the distance. This was really not a big deal for Lin Sun. In the past years, he'd been hunted by a group of old monsters of the King Realm, and he'd also killed a top powerhouse of the Reincarnation Development Realm. He'd even killed many half-step King Realm experts. How could he care about the targeting and threats of some younger generation? It could be said that Lin Sun was still no different from his peers in terms of cultivation and age, and he belonged to the younger generation. But in terms of experience and combat, he'd already stood at a higher level, and he could look down on all the others. This was the supreme way of cultivation. He was like a king of a realm, standing in the clouds, capable of going against the heaven and overlooking everything. However, even though his heart was calm, Lin Sun still couldn't help but be a little surprised when he saw Yu Jianming. Just from his temperament, Lin Sun could judge that Yu Jianming was indeed a rare and outstanding figure. At first glance, Lin Sun knew that Yu Jianming was not an ordinary person. He was different from others, and it was difficult for ordinary practitioners to cultivate such temperament. When Lin Sun was in the mortal world, he had seen many geniuses, heroes, and saints. Naturally, he could see many things that others couldn't at a glance. Just like Yu Jianming, according to Lin Sun's speculation, was no different from Qing Zhe, the future leader of the heaven-reaching sword sect. Although Qing Zhe had been defeated by Lin Sun, he was also a successor disciple of the heaven-reaching sword sect with excellent talent and strong foundation. In a place like the Fire Spirit province of the West Hung world, Thousand Illusion sect, which could only dominate a region, could cultivate such an outstanding figure like Yu Jianming, which naturally surprised Lin Sun a little. It was like suddenly finding a golden-scaled dragon in a small pond. Anything that didn't belong to the pond would sooner or later turn into a dragon. Just as Lin Sun was thinking, Yu Jianming and his companions had floated over. "Senior brother Yu, just now, that boy." Yang Yunde hurriedly stepped forward and added details. He couldn't wait for Yu Jianming to take action and suppress Lin Sun immediately. However, before he could finish speaking, he heard a slap, and Yang Yunde's face was slapped, causing him to stagger and almost fall to the ground. Chapter 777. Crack. The slap was so loud that even Mo Feng and the others who were hiding in the distance could hear it clearly, and they all felt pain in their cheeks for Yang Yundu. All the people present were stunned and couldn't believe it, because the one who slapped Yang Yundu was Yu Jianming, who he regarded as his backbone and backer. This seemed to be too unusual. After all, Yang Yundu was the person that Yu Jianming trusted the most in the past. When he saw Yang Yundu being bullied, Yu Jianming should have stood up for Yang Yundu, so why would he slap Yang Yundu instead? Moreover, it was a real slap in the face. The crisp slap and Yang Yundu's staggering posture all showed that Yu Jianming's slap was very powerful. Even Lin Sun was surprised and couldn't help but look at Yu Jianming thoughtfully. "Senior brother Yu, those successors of Thousand Illusion Dao sect," exclaimed. As for Yang Yundu, he was completely stunned. His cheeks were red and swollen, and he stood there stupidly with a look of disbelief. "I'm saving him." Yu Jianming sighed lightly. He was dignified, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. Although he stood there casually, he had a kind of convincing bearing. As he spoke, he looked at Lin Sun and said, "Thank you for showing mercy just now. I apologize to you on behalf of my junior brother." After that, he bowed slightly with a touch of apology on his face, looking very sincere. Everyone was shocked and even more stunned. In their hearts, Yu Jianming was like a god who was famous in the Fire Spirit province. But now, he was apologizing to a strange teenager. This was a little difficult for them to accept. Mo Feng and the others who were hiding in the distance were dumbfounded, and they almost couldn't get a breath out. They were here to watch a good show. Why did Yu Jiaming take the initiative to apologize before the show began? Brother Lin, senior brother Yu Jiaming is apologizing to you. Next to Lin Sun, Xia Xiaocheng's pure little face was shining with surprise. She once said that Yu Jiaming was a peerless talent she admired very much. I heard that. Lin Sun was a little helpless. He didn't expect that Xia Xiaocheng would be so excited after seeing Yu Jiaming. Senior brother Yu, how are you going to apologize to him? Yang Yundu was completely dumbfounded. He couldn't understand the situation and couldn't accept the scene before him. I told you a long time ago that there is a type of person in this world that cannot be slandered, and this fellow Taoist is undoubtedly one of them. Just based on your previous rude behavior, even if I kill you, you deserve it. Although Yu Jiaming spoke to Yang Yundu, he looked at Lin Sun with a trace of apology on his face. Lin Sun was surprised that a dazzling prodigy of the fire spirit state would be so humble at this moment. He faintly sensed that Yu Jiaming had probably noticed something from him, and that was why Yu Jiaming treated him like this. Yang Yundu's expression changed indeterminately. He was reprimanded to the point of being too ashamed to show his face, and there was an indescribable feeling of grievance and frustration in his heart. He was just a strange young man who came out of nowhere. How could he not be slandered? He couldn't figure it out, and he couldn't understand it. It wasn't just Yang Yundu, the other disciples of the Thousand Illusion Tao sect were shocked as well. They'd never imagined that Yu Jiaming would think so highly of Lin Sun. Not to be slandered? Could it be that this guy's origin was very unusual? In the distance, Mo Feng and the others were also palpitating. Yu Jiaming's attitude towards Lin Sun shocked them greatly. They vaguely sensed that the young man either had an amazing origin or a heaven-defying strength to be treated like this by Yu Jiaming. Apart from this, they couldn't find any other reason. At the thought of this, they couldn't help but feel discouraged and frustrated. If the young man was extremely terrifying, how could they take revenge? Taoism peer, can I have a word with you? Yu Jiaming suddenly spoke. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed imperceptibly, and then he nodded, all right. He had already guessed that Yu Jiaming didn't come here to apologize to him, and it was impossible for him to come here just to teach Yang Yundu a lesson in front of him. I'm Yu Jiaming, a successor disciple of the Thousand Illusion Tao sect. May I know your name? The two came to a low cyan mountain, not far away, and Yu Jiaming introduced himself. Lin Sun. Lin Sun said casually. Oh, it turns out to be Taoism peer Lin. I wonder if you've come here for the opportunity in the depths of Purple Ox Mountain? Yu Jiaming's eyes were clear, and he behaved appropriately and politely, like a gentleman. No. Lin Sun's answer made Yu Jiaming slightly stunned, and then he said with a smile, it seems that you also know that although the opportunity in Purple Ox Mountain is great, it hides monstrous killing intent. This trip may be a disaster rather than a blessing. Lin Sun knew that this guy must have misunderstood and thought that he was lying. He didn't bother to explain and said, Taoism peer you called me here just to talk about this? Yu Jiaming smiled slightly. Seeing that Lin Sun was a little impatient, he immediately went straight to the point and said, half a year later, on the Kangwu Mountain in Shiheng Territory, the Decennial Tao Discussion Lantern Festival will begin. Different from the past, many young talents in Shiheng Territory will participate in this Lantern Festival. It is said that Miss Wu Lingsong, the Saintess of Xianwen Sword House, the first orthodoxy in Shiheng Territory, will also come as promised. It can be foreseen that in the coming period of the Great World War, this is destined to be a grand event belonging to the young generation of our Shiheng territory. Speaking of this, Yu Jiaming looked at Lin Sun. I wonder if Taoism peer Lin is interested in participating? Kangwu Mountain, Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Lin Sun felt a little strange in his heart. If what Yu Jiaming said was true, Many talents in Shiheng territory would participate in this lantern festival. The significance of this lantern festival would be extraordinary. However, Lin Sun came to the ancient desolation territory from the lower world, so he didn't know what the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival was about. He hadn't even heard of Kangwu Mountain, so he wouldn't rashly agree. Lin Sun said, "With all due respect, I don't know you, Taoism peer you. Why do you invite me to participate in this festival?" As soon as Lin Sun said this, Yu Jiaming smiled at first, and then his eyes glowed. He stared at Lin Sun and said, "I don't know if Taoism peer Lin believes it. From the first time I saw you, I knew you were not an ordinary person." Speaking of this, a confident look appeared between his eyebrows. "I dare to conclude that with your strength, I'm afraid you are absolutely not under me, even better than me." Lin Sun narrowed his black eyes and immediately said, "Taoism peer you flatter me." Yu Jiaming smiled and said, "Taoism peer Lin, you are too modest." He took out a palm-sized cyan jade plate engraved with mysterious patterns and handed it to Lin Sun with both hands. "This is a nameplate for participating in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Whether Taoism peer Lin will participate or not, please accept it as a token of my sincerity." He paused for a moment and continued. "Of course, I have a certain level of selfishness in doing this. I hope to be able to enter and exit the Tao Lantern discussion with fellow Taoists and face the geniuses from the other places together. In short, I want to find a companion for myself," Yu Jiaming said with a self-deprecating smile, looking very magnanimous. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. Yu Jiaming obviously came prepared, and his attitude was full of sincerity. Lin Sun was a little surprised to be treated like this. After a moment of hesitation, he took the nameplate and said, "Then I'll thank you in advance. I'm looking forward to this day." Yu Jiaming was overjoyed. After that, he took the initiative to say goodbye and left with a group of descendants of Thousand Illusion Taoism sect. Lin Sun watched them leave, playing with the cyan jade plate in his hand and lost in thought. Yu Jiaming invited me so warmly. Is it really just to find a companion? Kangwu Mountain, Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. If I'm free, I can go have a look and see the elegance of the talents of Shiheng world. And the Xianwen Sword House is actually known as the first orthodoxy in Shiheng world. It seems that there must be a real mighty figure of the divine path there. What kind of peerless figure is Wu Lingsong, the saintess of the Xianwen Sword House? Lin Sun clearly noticed that when Yu Jiaming mentioned the three words Wu Lingsong, just now, a wisp of imperceptible adoration flashed in Yu Jiaming's eyes. Since Wu Lingsong was able to make Yu Jiaming admire her so much and was from the #1 sect in the West Hell world, the profound Inquisition Sword House, then she could probably be said to be extraordinary amongst the outstanding figures of the younger generation in the West Hell world. Without any delay, Lin Sun put away the cyan jade plate and continued with Xia Shaochong. But before that, he suddenly flashed and appeared near Mo Feng and the others who were hiding in the distance. It scared Mo Feng and the others to the point they trembled and almost cried out. "Guys, is it fun?" Lin Sun asked with a smile. The faces of Mo Feng and the others changed constantly. They looked at Lin Sun with fear and hatred in their eyes, which seemed very complicated. "What do you want?" One of them plucked up his courage and asked, gritting his teeth. Lin Sun thought for a while and just said, "Take care of yourself." Then he turned around and left. Until Lin Sun and Xia Shaochong disappeared, someone asked angrily, "He is too arrogant. What does he mean? Does he think there is no one in our Lingji sect? He is warning us that he just wants to teach us a lesson by retaliating against us before. If we don't know when to stop, he may kill us." Mo Feng's face was gloomy, and there was an indescribable sense of frustration in his heart. After seeing Yu Jiaming's attitude towards Lin Sun, he was completely disheartened and lost the thought of continuing to find Lin Sun for revenge. Everyone was silent, and their emotions fluctuated. In fact, it's not a big deal. We were wrong before. Although the other side repeatedly teased us, he didn't want to kill us. I think this matter can be completely forgotten. When Firen comforted them in a gentle voice, she could see that everyone was depressed and depressed. Forget it. Emo Feng sighed in his heart. Emo Feng sighed in his heart. Compared to this hatred, he indeed no longer had any thoughts of revenge. But after this incident, he realized that there was always someone better out there. How ridiculous he was before. Chapter 778. Senior brother, why were you so polite to that youth earlier? While Wind Void and the others were filled with emotions, the successors of the Thousand Illusions Tao sect were also puzzled. They could not understand Yu Jiaming's actions. Yu Jiaming had his hands behind his back, the sleeves of his clothes fluttering as he stepped on a golden rainbow, and he was indescribably graceful and unrestrained. Hearing this, he sighed helplessly and said, "I've told you many times that there are many talented people in the world. The young man named Lin Sun is an extremely powerful character." Speaking of this, a strange light flashed in his eyes. "You also know that I was born with the innate talent of the spirit of perception, and I cultivate the ancient secret technique of the sect, the Imperial Spirit Feather Light technique. This technique, combined with my innate talent, allows me to perceive things that others cannot perceive." Everyone nodded. They were indeed aware of this. "From Lin Sun, I can see some terrible potential and amazing power. Although I can't see his depth, I'm sure that even I can't defeat him in terms of fighting strength." When Yu Jiaming said these words, everyone was shocked and gasped. They finally realized why Yu Jiaming treated Lin Sun so politely. It turned out that this youth was actually a ruthless character who had concealed his strength. Yu Jiaming seemed to have thought of something, and he sighed with emotion. As the saying goes, there's always someone better out there. The ancient Desolation realm is too vast, and it covers the 4 great realms and tens of thousands of realms. There are too many extraordinary geniuses and geniuses that can be said to be unparalleled. If all of you think that the Fire Spirit realm can represent the entire world, then you're really no different than a frog at the bottom of a well. If Wind Void heard this lamentation, she would definitely resonate with it, because she had also lamented that there was always someone stronger than her. Senior brother, to put it bluntly, even if Lin Sun is really powerful, so what? This is the Fire Spirit State, the territory of our Thousand Illusion Tao sect. How dare he act so arrogantly here? Yang Yunde spoke. His face was still swollen, and there were still palm marks on it. He was also quite unwilling and angry in his heart. "If you say that again, disappear immediately." Yu Jiaming glanced at Yang Yunde with an icy cold gaze, causing the latter's entire body to tremble while his expression changed indeterminately, and he didn't dare make another sound. "I've already invited him to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival that will be held on Dark Parasol Mountain half a year from now. Before that, I hope that all of you understand that at least no one in our Thousand Illusion Tao sect is allowed to go against Lin Sun in the Fire Spirit Prefecture." Yu Jiaming's expression was solemn, and his eyes shot out a wisp of a terrifying sheen as he swept everyone with his gaze. This was a reminder and also a warning. Everyone felt apprehensive in their hearts, and they couldn't remain calm. Tao Discussion Lantern Assembly. That was a grand event that everyone in the West Hing boundary had focused their attention on. If one wanted to participate in this grand meeting, there were extremely harsh requirements. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even some insignificant geniuses were not qualified to participate. Originally, within the Thousand Illusion Tao sect, many of the younger generation disciples were still hoping to follow Yu Jiaming to participate in this gathering. But from the looks of it now, it was clearly impossible. Yu Jiaming had already chosen a companion, and it was a young man whose origins were unknown. This fact caused all the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Tao sect to be unable to help but feel jealous in their hearts. They were unable to imagine that Lin Sun would be valued so highly by senior brother Yu when they'd only met for the first time. Yu Jiaming didn't explain that Lin Sun actually hadn't agreed to participate in the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival. But all of this wasn't important. Yu Jiaming firmly believed that if Lin Sun was determined to rise in the upcoming Battle of the World, then he would surely not miss the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival. So the grand meeting this time was really too different from the past. The setting sun gilded the verdant mountain range with a layer of magnificent red. So it turns out that senior brother Yu Jiaming isn't just handsome, he's a good person as well. Compared to his radiant image in the rumors, I like him better. On the way to the depths of Violet Ox Mountain, Xia Xiaochong seemed to be extremely lively, and she chattered incessantly while her pure and cute little face was covered in a love-struck expression. Ah, I remember now. He's like a fresh and delicious fruit that no one has the heart to eat. Xia Xiaochong's words shocked Lin Sun to death. As soon as this metaphor came out, Lin Sun was stunned for a moment. He staggered and almost fell down. Yu Jiaming? A fresh and delicious fruit? If Yu Jiaming were to find out about this, he would probably feel as if he was struck by lightning, right? Thinking of this, Lin Sun suddenly became curious. What do you think about me compared with Yu Jiaming? He felt that Xia Xiaochong's mind was very simple and clean, which was different from others. He wanted to hear her views and feelings about him. You! Xia Xiaochong blinked her big clear eyes, and then frowned her delicate little eyebrows. She said in an old-fashioned way, Master is right. You men always like to compare who is better. It's extremely superficial and boring. Lin Sun was speechless and his lips twitched. He was finally sure that Xia Xiaochong's master must be a woman. Otherwise, how could she say such words? Crack! Lin Sun raised his hand and knocked on Xia Xiaochong's head. Hurry up and get ready. If you can't finish the test, who will cry at the end? Xia Xiaochong grimaced and said angrily, Brother Lin, my master also said that there are only two situations when a man gets angry out of shame. One is that his lie is exposed, and the other is that he feels very useless and inferior to others. I guess you must belong to the latter. Lin Sun almost choked to death with a gloomy face. He speculated and suspected maliciously that Xia Xiaochong's master was not only a woman, but also a resentful woman who had been hurt by a man. The steep peak was covered with rugged rocks of strange shapes. This was a steep and lonely peak in the depths of Purple Ox Mountain. At the foot of the peak, rocks were scattered and weeds were growing. Snow-winged eagles were flying and patrolling in the void. They had snow-white sharp wings, sharp beaks that could penetrate rocks, and a pair of sharp claws that could tear tigers and leopards apart. At this moment, their golden eyes were fixed on a pure and beautiful young girl, and they brazenly launched the most ruthless and violent attack. Whoosh! 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 When the snow-winged eagles flew, their wings were folded like knives. Their bodies were like snow-white rainbows, fast and fierce. They smashed the rocks and tore the void. Their ferocious spirit pierced through the sky. The girl dodged awkwardly and screamed. She was surrounded by danger. Brother Lin, you are retaliating against me. The girl was naturally Xia Xiaochong. She was very angry. Just because she said something that her master had said, she was taken to this area by Lin Sun, left alone, and said that her own test had begun. Master is right. Once a man gets angry out of shame, he will become narrow-minded and bad-tempered. He will be more ruthless than a woman when he retaliates. Xia Xiaochong shouted while dodging the attacks. Her clear voice resounded through this area. On the top of a mountain far away, Lin Sun, who was drinking wine, almost spat it out. It was the first time that he had been criticized like this. This damned girl, why did she suddenly become so infuriating? Lin Sun was speechless. He thought that the culprit must be Xia Xiaochong's master. Xia Xiaochong was a simple and transparent girl, but her master often instilled such cynical, rebellious, and hostile words to men. What a sin! Lin Sun felt that it was necessary to change Xia Xiaocheng's mind, so he decided to continue to stand by and turn a deaf ear. It was Xia Xiaocheng herself who said that she wanted to complete this test by herself. Since this was the case, he would fulfill her wish. He could take this opportunity to make her realize clearly that compared with him, that fresh and delicious fruit was more pleasing to the eye but useless. Thinking of this, Lin Sun suddenly felt a sense of contentment and peace of mind. But soon he felt something wrong. What was wrong with him? Why did he care so much about a little girl's opinion? Was he really angry out of shame, just as she said? It shouldn't be. He had never been narrow-minded and bad-tempered before. Lin Sun fell into deep self-awareness. At the bottom of the dangerous peak, Xia Xiaocheng could no longer be distracted by shouting. She was besieged by a group of snow-winged eagles. She was in a difficult and dangerous situation, so she had to concentrate all her energy to fight. Several hours later, more than a dozen snow-winged eagles were killed by Xia Xiaocheng. Seeing that the situation was not good, the remaining snow-winged eagles flapped their wings and fled in fear. There were bloodstains all over the ground, and a fishy smell assailed the nostrils. After Xia Xiaocheng extracted the soul of the snow-winged condor with the divine condensation pearl, he sat down on the ground without a care for his image and gasped for breath, looking exhausted. But she still muttered, "Revenge, this is a man's revenge. As my master said, no man is good." After getting angry out of shame, even a man like Brother Lin Sun will become so crazy. I can't imagine what he would have become if I had told him that he was not as good-looking as senior brother Yu Jianming. At the end of her words, she shuddered, as if she was scared to death. It seemed that she had imagined some extremely vicious and cruel pictures about Lin Sun in her mind. In the distance, Lin Sun saw all this, and his face suddenly became very interesting. "Hey, Brother Lin Sun, when did you come?" Xia Xiaocheng looked up and saw Lin Sun's face as black as the bottom of a pot. "If I didn't come, I don't know what you would have done to me," Lin Sun said angrily. "Have you had enough rest? Then let's continue the trial in another place." Xia Xiaocheng suddenly let out a miserable howl and hugged Lin Sun's thigh with her hands. With tears in her eyes, she said pitifully, "Brother Lin Sun, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I won't do it again." Seeing this girl admit defeat, Lin Sun immediately vented his anger. But he said stiffly, "Oh, you were wrong? What was wrong? Tell me." Xia Xiaocheng's big clear eyes were full of tears. "I shouldn't tell the truth. My master said that men are hypocritical and like to listen to the lies of shady women." Speaking of this, she suddenly frowned and stopped crying. She wondered, "That's not right. In this way, wouldn't I become a shady woman? No, I can't admit that I was wrong. My master said that good women never make mistakes. It's the world and the men in this world that are wrong." The corner of Lin Sun's mouth wriggled, and his body became stiff. He felt uncomfortable all over. At this moment, a disdainful shout sounded in the distance. Bah! As a man, he actually bullied a delicate young lady in broad daylight. Wasn't he ashamed at all? "I've never seen such a shameless man like you since I started my cultivation." Chapter 779. Unscrupulous and shameless? Lin Sun's face darkened to the extreme. Standing on the mountain in the distance, he saw a burly man with a height of 18 meters, a wide mouth and sharp teeth, looking at him with disdain and contempt. Bah! When he noticed Lin Sun looking at him, the burly man spat fiercely, which cracked a hole in the rock with great strength. Ho, it turns out to be a pig demon. Lin Sun found out the details of the burly man with his spiritual awareness. This was a fierce fire boar, a big demon at the middle stage of reincarnation developing realm, with an extremely overbearing aura. Pig! Xia Xiaocheng also raised her small head and looked at the burly man curiously. The burly man squinted at Lin Sun with disdain, and then he smiled and said, "Little girl, all living beings are born from heaven and earth, regardless of their nobility or inferiority, just like me. Although I look a little fierce, my character is very gentle and considerate. I'm absolutely not like that boy, who is unscrupulous and narrow-minded and only knows how to bully a delicate little girl like you. He's a disgrace to all male practitioners. I'm actually stared at by a pig demon. Lin Sun's expression became unkind. This evil beast didn't know the situation, but still dared to criticize him. He must be tired of living. Well, Brother Lin, even the pig agrees with what I said. Xia Xiaochong looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun said, "Oh," and looked at the pig demon in the distance coldly, saying, "Leave one leg, and I'll spare your life." This threat was a bit strange. Xia Xiaochong couldn't help asking, "Why leave one leg?" Lin Sun was expressionless. "I'm hungry. I want to eat roast pig leg." As soon as this reason came out, the pig demon in the distance suddenly widened his eyes. He was so angry that he laughed. "You are just a young man in Tao Insight Realm. How dare you regard me as food? Aren't you afraid of eating too much and killing yourself?" Lin Sun showed his snow-white teeth, and his expression became more and more unkind. "It seems that you are forcing me to eat a whole pig feast?" "A whole pig feast?" Xia Xiaochong burst into laughter. Her pure little face was as fresh and refined as the petals after the rain, charming and bright. "I will chop you into pieces first, you reckless, heartless man." The pig demon was so angry that his nose was crooked. With a roar, he swooped down from the top of the mountain like a comet falling from the sky. He raised his hand and made a huge red handprint to kill Lin Sun. Boom! The void was in chaos, emitting a sharp explosion. This pig demon could be considered an overlord in Purple Ox Mountain. As soon as he displayed his reincarnation developing stage cultivation, a fierce and domineering aura immediately covered the sky and earth, causing people's hearts to palpitate. However, he was doomed to be unlucky to meet Lin Sun this time. Lin Sun had been frustrated by Xia Xiaochong earlier and had nowhere to vent his anger. Now that he saw such a live target jumping out voluntarily, he seemed to have found a way to vent his anger. Whoosh! His sleeves fluttered in the wind as he suddenly took out the broken blade. A silver light danced in the air. The snow-white and translucent blade was like an illusory shadow that suddenly appeared in the void. Rumble! When the war broke out, the world was turbulent, the mountains collapsed, the earth cracked, and the blazing divine light raged like a tide, crushing all the rocks and plants. At first, the pig demon was extremely domineering and wild and didn't take Lin Sun seriously. But soon, his face changed. He realized the danger and began to be cautious and take Lin Sun seriously. In the end, he was so shocked and angry that he almost couldn't believe his eyes. Because Lin Sun forced him into a precarious situation with only a broken sword. You, the pig demon cried out, his voice filled with fear. He couldn't even speak. He really didn't expect that a young man in Tao Insight Realm could be so fierce. If he had known this, he wouldn't have dared to talk nonsense just now. Lin Sun ignored him and fought with the secret, yuan of the Taoist pattern formation contained in the broken blade. His offensive was extremely fierce and terrible. Puff, puff. Before long, the pig demon's body was bleeding, and there were many bloody scars on his body. He was so painful that he let out a terrible howl. He was in a miserable and embarrassing situation. He was really scared and begged for mercy crazily. But Lin Sun had accumulated a lot of anger. How could he let go of this pig demon easily? He seized the opportunity to cut him fiercely. "Brother Lin, are you really going to eat the whole pig banquet?" Xia Xiaochong opened her eyes wide and her little face was full of surprise. Lin Sun snorted, "Do I look like I'm joking?" Xia Xiaochong imagined the scene of the whole pig banquet in her mind. She couldn't help swallowing her saliva and said with a smile, "Can I eat with you? I haven't eaten such powerful pig demon meat before." Hearing this, the pig demon in the distance almost burst into tears. Just now, he was standing up for this little girl, speaking out for justice and fighting for the injustice. But in the blink of an eye, this little girl wanted to eat his meat. Child, I was wrong. I just know that women's hearts are the most hateful. The pig demon was anxious. His injuries were getting worse and worse, and he was about to be unable to bear it. He wailed and begged for mercy. Lin Sun said leisurely, "If I let you go like this, doesn't it mean that I admit what you said is true? I can't do that." The pig demon really wanted to slap himself. He was about to collapse. It was like shooting himself in the foot. In the end, Lin Sun let the pig demon go. The reason was very simple. The pig demon told Lin Sun that he could take him to find a big chance. Lin Sun naturally knew what the so-called big chance was, so he was not worried that the pig demon dared to deceive him. Where is the location of the mysterious ancient formation? Lin Sun put away the broken sword and asked directly. It turns out that child has already heard about it. That's easy. Just one sentence made the pig demon realize that Lin Sun should have known about this chance. Subsequently, the pig demon revealed everything it knew without holding anything back. After hearing all this, Lin Sun's eyes became a little strange. He asked, "Are you friends with Blackwater Python?" "Yes." The pig demon nodded, and then he was stunned. How did this young man know? No wonder. Lin Sun suddenly understood. When Blackwater Python told this news, it had said that it also heard it from a friend. Obviously, the friend of Blackwater Python was the pig demon in front of him. Lead the way. Lin Sun stopped talking nonsense. He was very curious about the ancient formation and wanted to see it with his own eyes. Child, it's very dangerous there. Monster Ku-Ting has been guarding there, and he doesn't allow anyone to get close. These days, countless creatures in Purple Ox Mountain were killed by Monster Ku-Ting just because they wanted to get close. If we go now, the pig demon was very hesitant. He did not want to take the risk. Lin Sun said coldly, "I'll give you a choice. 1. I'll eat a whole pig banquet right now. 2. Take me there. You decide." The pig demon immediately did not hesitate and chose the latter decisively. He did not want to be eaten by such a cruel young man. If so, he would die miserably. Starfall Peak was located in the depths of Purple Ox Mountain. It was said that a long time ago, a divine stone fell from the sky and pierced into the ground. After countless years, it became today's Starfall Peak. This peak was very different. It was completely silver in color, as if it was covered in snow. Every night it would emit a star-like light. In the past, many beast cultivators in this area had tried to investigate, thinking that there was some kind of fortune hidden in the Starfall Peak. But in the end, they found nothing. It was also in the evening a while ago that a dazzling divine light suddenly descended from the heavens, bathing Starfall Peak within it. Following that, along with the shaking of the heavens and the earth, an ancient formation was unearthed on Starfall Peak. It communicated with the essence of the sun and moon above, and absorbed the energy of heaven and earth below. Its light shot out like a bull, its power vast and mighty, instantly shaking all living beings in the surrounding area. Later, Monster Ku-Ting made his move and killed some beast cultivators. Blood dyed the place red, and he finally took over this peak. However, the news of fortune being born here couldn't be concealed at all. In the recent period of time, the vicinity of Starfall Peak had long since become a place of trouble, and blood flowed without end. Lin Sun and the others arrived. They were very careful and cautious. "Old pig, why are you bringing human cultivators with you? I advise you not to go. Just yesterday, a half-step king of Pine Sword sect was seriously injured by Monster Ku-Ting and had to retreat in panic." On the way, a beast cultivator revealed to Lin Sun and the others that the area around the Starfall Peak had become a place of blood and slaughter. It would be very dangerous to go there. The pig demon was worried, but Lin Sun did not want to give up halfway, so the group continued on their way. When night fell, they could already see the Starfall Peak from afar. Under the night sky, the silver-white Starfall Peak was like a white dragon standing in the sky. The entire mountain was filled with clear starlight, giving it a sacred feeling. Moreover, as they got closer, Lin soon keenly noticed that there was a special and obscure fluctuation in the starfall peak. Lin Sun's gaze suddenly changed. He felt that the starfall peak seemed to have a life of its own, breathing in and out in the night sky, absorbing the power of the stars, making it look even more sacred. "It is indeed extraordinary," Lin Sun murmured. As they got closer, they became more and more cautious. The surroundings were silent, not even the sound of insects could be heard. The atmosphere was very depressing. The starfall cliff was filled with jagged rock. From afar, a majestic and vigorous aura was already blowing towards them. "We can't go any further." The pig demon's face was pale, and his whole body was trembling. He felt an invisible sense of fatal danger, which made him want to turn around and run. "It is indeed very dangerous." Lin Sun frowned. His divine sense was so powerful that it only took him a moment to sense that there were at least a dozen extremely powerful auras hiding in the darkness around the starfall peak. It seems that even with Monster Ku Ting's ferocity, it is not enough to deter other strong cultivators from taking the risk. But where is that ancient formation? Lin Sun spread out his divine sense and shrouded the starfall peak. In an instant, a dangerous aura rushed into Lin Sun's heart, making his heart palpitate. He felt a chill run down his spine. He could sense that the top of the starfall peak was covered with an obscure restrictive power, and it was extremely terrifying. Without a doubt, the mysterious ancient formation that caused the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth to be unearthed was definitely there. Chapter 780. The night was dark and quiet, except for the starfall peak, which was as white as snow and connected with the starlight in the sky, full of sacred air. After determining the location of the mysterious ancient formation, Lin Sun thought for a while and asked the pig demon to hide with Xia Xiaochong. He planned to climb the mountain alone and have a look at the ancient formation. As for Xia Xiaochong's safety, Lin Sun didn't worry about it at all. He had already left a strand of soul brand on the pig demon, so as long as the pig demon made any movements within a 50 kilometers radius of Starfall Peak, he would be aware of it at the first possible moment. In the dark, Lin Sun quietly used ice dragon steps and approached. What a strong murderous aura! When he arrived at the bottom of the Starfall Peak, Lin Sun's whole body tensed up. The atmosphere here was too depressing, and the smell of blood was overwhelming. There were piles of corpses on the ground, including those of fierce beasts and practitioners. They died in all kinds of strange ways, but all were extremely miserable. Looking up, from the bottom of the Starfall Peak, traces of fierce battles could be seen everywhere on the snow-white mountain road. Obviously, during this period of time, frequent conflicts and bloody battles broke out here, causing many strong practitioners to die here. It could be said that every inch of the mountain road was an inch of blood. At the same time, Lin Sun keenly noticed that when he approached the bottom of the Starfall Peak, there were countless spiritual awareness sweeping towards him like a tide. Humph! A cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes. He ran the image of sun in meditating magic, and the power of his soul was like a brilliant sun, bursting out terrible waves of destruction and spreading out. In an instant, the spiritual awareness that swept over seemed to sense the danger and retreated like frightened birds, not daring to explore again. What a ferocious boy! Many strong practitioners hiding in the dark were shocked. What a strong spirit power! It turns out that he is not in the Tao Insight realm, but a practitioner in the reincarnation developing realm. Some strong practitioners thought that Lin Sun's spirit was not in the Tao Insight realm, but a practitioner in the reincarnation developing realm. Obviously, they were wrong. In other words, subconsciously, they had never thought that there would be a freak like Lin Sun in the world who could condense a spirit in the Tao Insight realm. Lin Sun started to climb the mountain with a calm posture, as if he was taking a stroll in a courtyard. In fact, he was like a fully drawn bow, ready to strike at any time. The mountain was silvery white in color and bathed in starlight. It looked divine, but in reality there were corpses everywhere. Bloodstains could be seen everywhere, and the scene was horrifying. Moreover, there was an invisible and terrifying power of prohibition, which was so oppressive that Lin soon felt creepy. Little friend, even though this fortuitous encounter has arrived a long time ago, it hasn't reached the time to activate it yet. I advise you to turn back and not ascend the mountain again so as to avoid losing your life. On the way, Lin soon also noticed that there were powerful practitioners hiding. There were some top figures in the reincarnation developing realm of the human clan. The one who reminded Lin Sun was an old man in a Taoist robe and a feather crown. He sat cross-legged under an ancient tree. When he opened and closed his eyes, there seemed to be torrents of lightning surging in them, which was extremely frightening. "Thank you." Lin Sun nodded to express his gratitude and continued to climb the mountain. The younger generation will surpass us in time, but aren't you a little too rash?" The old man in the Taoist robe smiled and withdrew his gaze, no longer paying attention to Lin Sun. In the past few days, he had seen many human practitioners and ferocious beasts climb the mountain, but 9 out of 10 of them died in the fierce battles and conflicts. The name of the old man in the Taoist robe was Song Qi, an elder of the Thousand Illusion Taoism sect, one of the 4 sects and 3 families. He had reached the reincarnation developing realm and was extremely famous in the fire spirit state. But even he could only hide in the area halfway up the mountain and didn't dare to go any higher. Because, according to his knowledge, the higher one went on Starfall Mountain, the more dangerous it would be. Numerous powerful and ruthless figures were hidden there. There were peak experts from the 4 sects and 3 clans, and there were also some experts from all over the world who had heard the news and were rushing over. Even some terrifying monsters in the Purple Ox Mountain were entrenched on the Starfall Peak. It was definitely dangerous and full of killing intent. At this time, the young man was only in the Tao Insight realm, but he insisted on climbing the mountain. In Song Qi's view, it was no different from courting death. "Little thing, this is not a place you should come to. Get out of here." Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded on the mountain, and a ghost-headed eagle rushed out, flapping its sharp wings, trying to send the young man flying. This fierce bird was extremely violent and arrogant. Its wings set off a hurricane that swept down the rock. It was extremely terrifying. Retribution had come. Song Qi sighed inwardly. The ghost-headed eagle was extremely powerful, and it could kill ordinary reincarnation developing realm practitioners like cutting vegetables. Moreover, it was arrogant and no one knew how many experts it had killed these days. In Song Qi's view, the young man couldn't escape. This is the consequence of not listening to advice. Song Qi couldn't bear to watch the bloody scene, and was about to withdraw his gaze. But at this moment, his pupils suddenly shrank. Swish! A strand of white transparent, almost illusory saber light swept out from the young man's body. With a light flash, one of the ghost-headed eagle's wings was cut off, and the blood light soared high. This, Song Qi was dumbfounded. The ghost-headed eagle shrieked, and its shrill voice spread far in the night, startling all the creatures hiding in the nearby area and causing them to pay attention to this side. Then, they were also startled and gasped. On the silver-white mountain road, the young man was tall and graceful, with an ethereal temperament. A white broken blade emitting a clear brilliance was circling around him, adding a frightening power to him. In the distance, the ghost-headed eagle was screaming and dodging in panic with a frightened look. Comparing the two, the young man was even more extraordinary. Whose disciple is he? Many human practitioners were shocked. With the cultivation of Tao Insight Realm, the young man could cut off one of the ghost-headed eagle's wings with one saber strike and seriously injure it. This was undoubtedly incredible. On the other hand, some of the greater demons had heavy expressions as they'd realized that an unusual and ferocious figure had arrived on Starfall Peak tonight. Lin soon didn't chase after the ghost-headed eagle, nor did he pay attention to the eyes cast on him in the dark. He went straight up the mountain. But obviously, his strike just now had deterred many experts, causing them to not dare act rashly and decide to watch coldly from the sidelines. Could it be that this young man is a true disciple from an ancient orthodoxy in the westward world? His ability is too strong. Under the ancient tree, Song-Chi's mood was rather restless. Just now, he was still laughing because he thought Lin Sun was going to court death. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, such a reversal would occur, and it caused his face to burn slightly. He asked himself honestly, if it was him, he wouldn't dare to go against the ghost-headed eagle. The younger generation really surpasses the older. Song-Chi sighed with emotion in his heart. The battle of the world was coming, and some extraordinary and peerless geniuses had begun to show their extraordinary talents one after another. In the future, the world was bound to belong to these geniuses of the younger generation. Song-Chi suddenly thought of Yu Jianming, the successor of their Thousand Illusion sect. If he was compared with this young man, who was stronger? This place is really magical. Soon, Lin Sun's figure was not far from the top of the mountain. The flowers, plants and trees in this area were all silver, as if they were made of frost and snow. In the night, they were filled with a rain of light and swallowed the starlight, which was very magical. Lin Sun suddenly had a feeling that these plants had intelligence. Maybe it wouldn't take long for them to degenerate into intelligent creatures. A clear fragrance came from the wind, making Lin Sun squint his eyes. Suddenly, he saw a small silver tree rooted in a rugged crack of an ancient rock dozens of meters away. It was only about a foot high, with its bark like cracked dragon scales. The trunk was vigorous and unsophisticated. On its branches there were 7 or 8 round and translucent fruits the size of a thumb, overflowing with silver light. The clear fragrance just now came from this. This is definitely a peerless medicine. Lin Sun's black eyes flashed with a touch of light. At the same time, he was very vigilant in his heart. These days, no one knew how many strong people had come here. Even now, there were many fierce people hiding in the nearby area. But this silver little tree was completely unharmed, and even its fruits hadn't been plucked. This seemed to be very unusual. Sure enough, there's a trap. Lin Sun sensed carefully with his spiritual awareness, and soon found that there was a faint, obscure power of prohibition at the root of this small silver tree. Although it was only a wisp, it made Lin Sun's heart palpitate and his scalp tingle. That was a kind of breath that could be fatal. Moreover, Lin Sun was very familiar with this wisp of breath, which came from the same source as the obscure power of prohibition covering the top of Starfall Peak. Is this the medicine nourished by the power of that ancient formation? This method is really extraordinary. It can communicate with the power of stars as nourishment to water the medicine and promote its growth. It can be imagined how amazing its efficacy will be when it matures. Lin Sun was envious, but he finally restrained himself and went on his way without taking any action. This boy is also smart. He didn't fall for the temptation. In the dark, some strong people who had been watching Lin Sun's every move were secretly surprised, and many of them sighed. They hoped that Lin Sun would be killed, so that they would have one less competitor. It wasn't long before Lin Sun found another medicine that was not far from the top of the mountain. It was shaped like a fire phoenix with its wings spread and overflowed with dazzling fiery glow. When looked at from afar, it was like a fire phoenix that was undergoing nirvana and rebirth. The most miraculous thing was that it was actually rooted in the void, bathed in starlight and gushing with fiery glow. It was dreamlike, like a divine fire phoenix dancing in the void, and it simply didn't seem real. Before Lin Sun got close, a strong fragrance of medicine filled the air. Just a sniff made Lin Sun feel comfortable, relaxed and happy, and his chi was lively and smooth. What kind of rare medicine is this? It wouldn't be a divine medicine, right? Lin Sun was completely moved, and his heart shook and couldn't calm down. He was very sure that the origin of this medicine that was shaped like a fire phoenix was absolutely beyond imagination. But at the same time, Lin Sun also noticed that the void around this medicine was covered with an extremely obscure fluctuation of prohibition, and it made him feel terrified and uneasy. Young man, it's fate that we meet. So long as you listen to my instructions, this fortune before you is yours. Suddenly, a dry and hoarse voice sounded. Chapter 781. Swoosh. Along with the voice, a strange vine suddenly gushed out from an ancient silver tree that towered into the sky near the mountain peak. It was as thick as a bucket and 300 m long. Half of its trunk was verdant as if it was polished from jade, and it glowed with abundant vitality. The other half of its trunk was withered like charcoal, and it was suffused with a gray and hazy aura of death like a tree that had been struck by lightning. The two contrasted each other. One half was full of vitality, while the other half was lifeless. It was like life and death coexisted with each other, and it gave off a strong visual impact. It spread down from the silver tree, and an extremely terrifying aura suffused the surroundings, causing the heavens and the earth to wail. However, it was very careful, and it didn't dare approach the mountain peak with its aura as if it was afraid of disturbing something. Old freak Ku Ting. Lin soon determined its origin with just a glance. According to the Blackwater Python and the Pig Demon, this was absolutely the #1 great demon in Purple Ox Mountain, and it possessed the strength of a half-step king realm expert. Since the ancient formation of Starfall Mountain was unearthed, Old Freak Ku Ting had been occupying this place, and he'd killed countless experts who had come to explore this place. He was absolutely a ruthless figure that killed and caused a disaster. Noticing that Old Freak Ku Ting had made a move, the numerous experts hiding in the dark all paid close attention to him. As expected, this old demon can't tolerate anyone approaching the mountain peak. That's his territory, and anyone who approaches will die. This young man is going to suffer. He's still young and frivolous. Why hasn't he thought about why no one dares to approach the mountain peak rashly when so many experts are waiting here? Since ancient times, geniuses usually die prematurely. Now it seems that this young man can't escape this calamity. Some sighed with emotion, some took pleasure in Lin Sun's misfortune, and some felt sorry for Lin Sun. That was Old Freak Ku Ting, a half-step king realm expert. Not to mention a Tao Insight realm cultivator, even a top reincarnation developing realm cultivator wouldn't be able to defeat him. Young man, what do you think? Old Freak Ku Ting approached Chen Shi and formed a strange face. Half of his skin was tender and translucent like a baby's, and the other half was covered in wrinkles and coiled with the aura of death. Even his eyes revealed two completely different states, and his appearance was so strange that it caused others to feel cold. This fortune was born from the heavens and earth, and it's not yours to begin with. If you want it, go get it yourself. You're not qualified to order me to do things for you. Lin Sun's expression remained calm and indifferent. The overmatches in the dark were all surprised and shocked. They didn't expect that Lin Sun was still so calm and strong at such a time, which was amazing. Old Monster Ku Ting was also stunned. He didn't expect a young man at the Tao Insight stage to be so courageous. After that, his face sank. This king has given you fortune, yet not only are you not grateful, but you're even acting so rudely. Could it be that you really want to die? Lin Sun smiled with a cold luster surging in his black eyes. You're just a vine spirit who hasn't really stepped into the king realm. How dare you call yourself a king and threaten me? Hiss. Many overmatches in the dark gasped and wondered whether Lin Sun was crazy. Although a half-step king was not a real king, it was enough to look down on all the practitioners below the king level. But in Lin Sun's eyes, it seemed that a half-step king was nothing more than this, which was too surprising. Old Monster Ku Ting narrowed his eyes, and a horrible killing intent surged all over his body. His power swept across the whole area like a flood. Boy, I appreciate your courage very much. I'll give you one last chance. Go and pick that precious herb, and I'll let you die with more dignity." As he spoke, he shot his gaze towards the miraculous herb that was like a fluttering fiery phoenix near the peak of the mountain. Obviously, he wanted Lin Sun to risk his life. Everyone knew that there was a great horror hidden near that magical herb, which was related to the ancient formation on the top of the mountain. If Lin Sun rashly went to pick it, he would definitely end up miserably. Okay. To everyone's surprise, Lin Sun agreed without hesitation. For a moment, those overmatches in the dark thought that they had misheard. Lin Sun was so aggressive just now. Why did he suddenly change his mind? Was he also shocked by old monster Ku Ting's ferocity? Humph, it turns out that you are also afraid of death. In that case, hurry up. Old monster Ku Ting showed a touch of disdain on his face. Lin Sun's previous calm performance was regarded by him as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, since you are so anxious, I'll fulfill your wish. Lin Sun nodded and stepped forward, walking towards that magical herb. Anxious? Fulfill my wish? Old monster Ku Ting narrowed his eyes. He felt that Lin Sun's words sounded strange. The next moment, his face changed and he roared angrily, "Stop!" Suddenly, a snow-white blade flashed out from Lin Sun's body, and with an incredible speed, it suddenly chopped at the magical medicine not far away. It was too fast. No one expected that Lin Sun, who had promised to pick the herb, would do such a cruel thing. He even wanted to destroy that precious herb. This made all the overmatches in the dark widen their eyes. Old monster Ku Ting was a little unprepared. When he wanted to stop Lin Sun, it was already too late. Boom! Rumbling that shook the heavens resounded out as a strand of terrifying restriction energy suddenly surged out from the vicinity of the divine herb, and it transformed into obscure and mysterious talisman markings that covered the sky and fiercely blasted the broken blade that slashed down towards it flying. Lin Sun was affected. His blood and chi tumbled, and he almost coughed up blood. But he was already prepared. When the blow fell, he had already driven the vast universe arc with all his strength and rushed out of Starfall Peak. Lin Sun had already expected that it was obviously impossible to destroy that precious herb with his own ability. He did this only to frame old monster Ku Ting. Boom! Sure enough, the restrictive energy in the vicinity of that miraculous precious medicine was activated, and a myriad of mysterious symbols appeared. Every single symbol was brilliant as if they were constructed from silver, and they glowed brilliantly under the night sky while emitting a terrifying and monstrous pressure. Such might cause the entire Starfall Peak to shake without end. Old monster Ku Ting trembled all over, and his face was extremely pale. He was extremely angry. He let out a roar, turned around, and fled. The strength of the restriction was too terrifying. Once it erupted, it could simply obliterate the heavens and the earth. Old freak Ku Ting had been residing here all this time, so he'd witnessed the might of the restriction erupting, and it caused him to feel a chill run down his spine. That was why he didn't dare to hesitate at a time like this. He immediately fled. Damn it, run! Damn it, this guy is too hateful. He actually wants to harm us all. He wants to use the power of the ancient formation to deal with old monster Ku Ting. It's a dangerous move. Unfortunately, he doesn't know how terrible the power of the ancient formation is. On Starfall Peak, the experts hidden in the shadows were all flustered, and like frightened rabbits, they scurried out and flashed out of the peak. Some even cursed and stamped with rage. They thought that Lin Sun's move was no different from harming them. After all, it was not easy for them to occupy a place on Starfall Peak. They were just waiting for the opportunity to open so that they could gain the upper hand in the competition. But after this scene happened, it was equivalent to destroying all the advantages they had occupied. Rumble! The power of the restrictive power broke out, and the sacred silver light evolved into obscure symbols, pouring down from the top of the mountain like a volcano erupting after thousands of years of silence, with a terrible power that could destroy the world. It was like poking a hornet's nest. The scene was terrible. Bang! Although old monster Ku Ting fled fast enough, he was still hit by an obscure silver symbol, which smashed a bloody hole in his bucket-thick torso. He screamed in pain, and his eyes were bloodshot. He felt extremely humiliated that he was schemed against by a young human and suffered such a big loss. The other overmatches ran faster and faster. Even someone as strong as old monster Ku Ting couldn't resist the power of the restrictive power at all. It was too horrible. The scene was chaotic. Pig Demon and Xia Xiaochong, who were hiding in the distance, had long been dumbfounded. They didn't understand why such a shocking change happened. Will Brother Lin have an accident? Xia Xiaochong's innocent face was full of worry. It's better if he dies. Pig Demon was severely beaten by Lin Sun before, so he was full of resentment and hoped that Lin Sun would die as soon as possible. After that, his eyeballs spun as he consoled Xia Xiaochong with a warm voice. Little girl, don't be too sad. Even if that kid is dead, you still have me. I'll surely treat you extremely well and won't allow you to suffer any grievances. Xia Xiaochong glared at him fiercely. How dare you curse Brother Lin Sun? If he comes back, he'll definitely make you into a pig feast. Pig Demon shuddered and his face changed constantly. He was really worried and didn't dare to say anything more. As the saying goes, a loose tongue can cause trouble. He had deeply learned this from Lin Sun before. At this moment, Lin Sun was also suffering. Although he drove Vast Universe Arc to fly fast, as soon as he reached the void, he was suppressed by an obscure restrictive power. It was like falling into a swamp, so that the speed of Vast Universe Arc couldn't be exerted at all. What made Lin Sun most speechless was that the restrictive power that broke out on Starfall Peak rushed into the void and chased him crazily as if it had a mind of its own. He just wanted to frame old monster Ku Ting, but he didn't expect that he would be involved in it. If he had known this, he would have used insignificant bow and blue sky arrow directly. How could such a disaster happen? Look, that boy's treasure ship has been suppressed. Ha ha ha, retribution. This is called shooting oneself in the foot instead of harming others. At the foot of the mountain, a few experts who escaped with their lives roared with laughter, taking joy in others' misfortune. They vented out a breath of resentment. Little bastard, even if you die, I'll sacrifice your bones to ashes. Old monster Ku Ting's face was filled with resentment. He was accidentally injured this time. If a strong enemy came to attack, it was likely that he would not be able to occupy the top of Starfall Peak as before. Xia Xiaochong and Pig Demon finally realized that Lin Sun was in a bad situation. Their faces changed and their hearts were in their throats. Chapter 782. The Vast Universe Arc was an incomplete saint artifact. Even though its might wasn't as great as it was in the past, it was able to avoid the attacks of kings when controlled, and it was extremely miraculous. At that time in the depths of the Soul Oblivion Sea, Lin Sun had relied on this treasure to safely escape into the Dao burial tomb with the mysterious young woman, Ahu, while being pursued by numerous kings. Yet now, the energy of restrictions that erupted from Starfall Peak was actually able to suppress the Vast Universe Arc, and this caused Lin Sun to be unable to help but be shocked and realize that they were in trouble. If he wasn't wrong, then the mysterious ancient formation that emerged from Starfall Peak was probably a terrifying grand formation set up by a true saint. Otherwise, it would be absolutely impossible for it to possess such terrifying strength. Rumble! The energy of restrictions that erupted from Starfall Peak grew even more terrifying. Bright silver and obscure symbols fluttered through the sky, dispelling the night sky and illuminating the world. All the living beings in an area of 500 kilometers were alarmed, and they lay prostrate on the ground while shivering as they sensed an indescribably oppressive and terrifying aura. At the foot of the mountain, The expressions of all the experts that had fled from Starfall Peak changed repeatedly, and they had no choice but to retreat far away. This caused them to hate Lin Sun even more. If it wasn't for the calamity he'd caused, how could such a shocking change have occurred on Starfall Peak? It caused them to have no choice but to retreat in a sorry state. Especially old freak Ku Ting, he gnashed his teeth with hatred, and his face was extremely livid. If it wasn't for it being too dangerous in space, he wished for nothing more than to charge forward and tear Lin Sun apart with his own two hands. It was too infuriating. He was asked to gather herbs, yet he'd played such a trick. He simply deserved to die 1,000 deaths. The scene at the peak of Starfall Peak changed greatly. An ancient formation appeared on the ground that was bright silver like snow, and it linked up with the energy of the stars in the sky while absorbing the essence of the heavens and the earth. It revealed countless formation diagrams and markings that were dense like tidewater, and it was dazzling and divine. One could faintly see that there was actually an enormous egg that was the size of a millstone in the depths of the ancient formation. It was completely round and crystalline, and it flowed with chilly starlight. It seemed as if it was born from a primeval ferocious beast. It was filled with a divine aura, and it was faintly visible within the ancient formation, causing it to seem extremely mysterious. The energy of the stars and essence of the heavens and the earth absorbed by the ancient formation surged like tidewater onto this enormous egg and was absorbed by it. An egg? In the sky, Lin Sun's eyes widened. He almost couldn't believe it. A divine formation occupied a mountain and communicated with the power of stars and heaven just to breed the creature in this egg? This seemed to be too shocking. But soon, Lin Sun didn't have time to think too much about this. The vast universe arc that he controlled became increasingly suppressed, and the power of the spells nearly drowned him out. That kid is finished. In the distance of Starfall Peak, both human practitioners and demonic practitioners were aware that the treasure ship driven by Lin Sun was about to collapse. This made them gloat over Lin Sun's misfortune more and more. They were eager to see Lin Sun suffer. Old freak Ku Ting was ready to collect Lin Sun's bones and grind them to ashes when Lin Sun died. If he didn't do that, he wouldn't be able to vent the hatred in his heart. If you really provoke me, I'll fight it out with you. In vast universe arc, Lin Sun sensed the danger. He gritted his teeth and took out insignificant bow and blue sky arrow, intending to fight against the ancient formation. However, just as he was about to take the risk, a cold voice suddenly sounded in his ears. "My friend, please stop and listen to me." "Who?" Lin Sun's black eyes suddenly shrank. At the same time, he found that he hadn't explained clearly about writing in the Four Sides bar, which made many people misunderstand him. It was very simple. There was a power failure at home at night, and the laptop that had been used for writing was sent for repair. The battery of his old laptop could only last for half an hour, and he couldn't set up a traffic hotspot, so he couldn't use his mobile phone to connect to the internet, so he had to go to the internet bar to write. He didn't want to say it at first. After all, this kind of bad luck was not worth writing about. If he said it too much, it would seem that he was trying to gain sympathy. Chapter 783. Lin Sun was safe and sound, which made Ku Ting even angrier. Gritting his teeth so hard that they almost broke, he jumped up into the sky. "Bastard, the power of the ancient formation didn't kill you. Let me send you to hell myself." His voice was cold and creepy. His body, which was as thick as a bucket, was like a coiling dragon, filled with two kinds of horrifying power, bitterness and glory. The void collapsed, producing a roar. This was the power of a half-step king. Once it was used, the wind and clouds moved in all directions, and the destructive aura covered the sky. This old monster seems to hate that kid to the core, and he wants to kill him. Many powerful warriors were horrified, and they all dodged, not wanting to be affected. Brother Lin is in danger. Xia Xiaocheng's hands and feet were cold, and her pure and beautiful face was full of worry. "It's over. Ku Ting is angry. Now, no one can save that kid. Little girl, let's run away together. The pig demon was not loyal at all. He wanted to run away, and this guy was very shameless. He didn't give up and even wanted to take Xia Shaochong with him. But at this moment, a calm voice sounded in the pig demon's ears. Okay, run away. You'd better not be caught by me. The pig demon's body stiffened, and he looked up in horror. Under the night sky, Lin Sun's treasure ship lightly flashed and avoided Ku Ting's horrifying attack. He seemed to be very calm and not embarrassed at all. What made the pig demon's scalp numb was that a strand of soul consciousness power swept out from the treasure ship and firmly locked on him. He couldn't escape at all. Obviously, if he dared to run away, the consequences would be unimaginable. Child, I was just joking. How could I do such a dishonorable thing? Child, don't get distracted again, lest you get hurt by that Ku Ting. The pig demon patted his chest and said with a determined look. Humph. Lin Sun didn't bother to pay attention to this immoral pig demon anymore, and focused on the battle. Boom. The void collapsed horribly, and the angry Ku Ting showed no mercy. His body swayed in the void, and he started to attack Lin Sun. Its attacks were extremely overbearing and violent. Its body that was thick like a bucket swept out like a divine dragon swinging its tail. Everywhere it passed, space collapsed while violent divine radiance swept out, and it blasted the layer of clouds apart. It was a boundlessly terrifying sight. All of the experts were shocked. Old monster Ku Ting was too powerful. Even among half-step kings, he could be considered a peak existence. All of them suspected that this old freak had probably touched the threshold of the king realm, and he was only a step away from breaking through to become a true king. Lin Sun steered the vast universe arc to dodge. It was like he was flying through stormy seas. Although it seemed incomparably dangerous, he was always able to avert disaster every time. This was the marvelous aspect of the vast universe Arkansas. Without the suppression of the ancient array spells, let alone old monster Ku Ting, even the attack of a true king could be avoided. This is definitely a strange treasure with marvelous power. Many experts noticed this was strange, and they couldn't help but exclaim with surprise. Could it be that this kid relied on this treasured vessel to deal with the attacks from the ancient formation? Thinking of this, many experts became envious. In the void, old monster Ku Ting became even more furious. His face was livid, and his killing intent soared into the sky. Previously, when he attacked with his full strength, he was actually unable to kill Lin Sun in one move. On the contrary, Lin Sun avoided his attacks again and again. This made him feel ashamed. Who was he? The #1 great beast of the Purple Ox Mountain, a half-step king. He had shaken the world for many years, and he didn't even put ordinary half-step kings in his eyes. But now, he attacked with his full strength, but he couldn't do anything to a Tao Insight Realm youngster. If news of this spread out, where would his face go? Die! Old monster Ku Ting roared, and black and white chi appeared on his thick body. One represented the power of life, and the other represented the chi of death. They fused together and finally condensed into a strange black and white divine rainbow that shot out like a bull and swept across the sky. This was too terrifying. It made the scalps of the experts in the distance go numb, and they had no choice but to retreat far away. In this area of 100 li, besides Starfall Mountain, all the other mountains had been crushed and collapsed. The ancient trees were uprooted along with the soil, and then collapsed into powder. At this moment, the monstrous might of a half-step king was vividly displayed, and it caused the heavens and the earth to dim down. However, even if it was such world-shocking might, it was still unable to kill Lin Sun, and he controlled the vast universe arc to swiftly dodge it. How could this be possible? All the experts were flabbergasted. This greatly overturned their understanding. A youth at the Tao Insight Realm had merely relied on a treasured vessel to easily dodge the numerous attacks of a half-step king, and this seemed to be too inconceivable. Could it be that the treasured vessel is a divine treasure that surpasses the scope of the king realm? Some cultivators guessed in their hearts, and they were extremely tempted. If it wasn't for this, it would be utterly impossible to explain the scene before their eyes. Little bastard, I don't believe I'm unable to kill you. Old Monster Ku Ting's furious roar was like a thunderclap that surged through the heavens and the earth, and it caused the expressions of all the living beings in this area to turn pale and shiver. He was obviously infuriated to the limit, and he killed to the point his eyes had turned red. For a time, the heavens and the earth were collapsing, and the scene of destruction caused rocks and sand to fly about could be seen everywhere. At the same time, Lin soon let out a clear and resounding howl that swept through the heavens and the earth. Fellow Taoists, I feel rather guilty for triggering the restrictions of the ancient formation earlier and causing all of you to be affected. So, I've decided to draw this old bastard away right now and strive for an opportunity for all of you to ascend the mountain and seize fortuitous encounters. Take it as my compensation. All the experts in the surroundings were stunned, and their expressions became strange. This kid that's full of evil tricks is actually so kind? After that, all of them had a flash of inspiration in their hearts. If old Monster Ku Ting was drawn away, then it would be a rare opportunity for them to ascend the mountain. Perhaps they would even be able to seize this opportunity to seize some fortuitous encounters. Everyone, there's a trap in all of this. That kid is black-hearted and bold. His words seem to be spoken beautifully, yet he's actually speaking to old Monster Ku Ting. Someone sneered. Sure enough, old Monster Ku Ting's expression became even more gloomy, and he was angered to the point his face turned livid by Lin Sun's words. You want to draw this king away and gain benefits for those fellows? You're simply audacious and arrogant to the extreme. Old Monster Ku Ting roared, and then he opened his mouth and spat out a black and white spear that tore through the sky with a swish towards the vast universe. Arkansas swish. The sky was easily torn apart, and that spear flowed with black and white divine radiance. It was strange and terrifying, and it possessed an extremely terrifying penetrative force. However, Lin Sun didn't intend to be entangled with old Monster Ku Ting since long ago, and he controlled the vast universe arc to swiftly fly towards the distance. Where do you think you're going? Old Monster Ku Ting was enraged to the point he was on the verge of going mad. If he were to allow this kid to escape in public, then he, a half-step king realm expert, would surely become the laughingstock of the world. At the same time, Lin Sun spoke out as well, and he reminded all the experts present. Everyone, there's only one chance. All of you must make the best use of your time. The gazes of all the cultivators present flickered, and their expressions changed indeterminately. They paid close attention to old Monster Ku Ting to see if he would abandon Starfall Peak and pursue Lin Sun. The enraged old Monster Ku Ting also noticed this scene, and he was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. However, he had to consider whether it was worth it to pursue Lin Sun. If he pursued Lin Sun, it would definitely give the other experts the opportunity to ascend Starfall Peak. If he didn't pursue Lin Sun, he would be very unwilling and resentful in his heart. What should he do? Old Monster Ku Ting was somewhat at a loss, and he was so angry that he almost went mad. This kid was simply too despicable and shameless. Previously, he had used the ancient restriction to frame him. And now, he even used his determination to obtain Starfall Peak to bewitch the other cultivators, and put him in a dilemma. Old thing, aren't you very awe-inspiring? Come, let's change places and have a good spar. Lin Sun shouted loudly, and his tone was full of provocation. All the cultivators present gasped. This kid was really arrogant. He actually dared to challenge a half-step king realm expert like this. Was he not worried that something bad would happen to him? Old Monster Ku Ting was completely enraged. As if he had gone mad, he swayed his long and thick body and rushed towards Lin Sun in the distance. You're really obedient. Not bad. When I kill you later, I will give you a dignified death. Lin Sun's voice was leisurely, and it floated in the air. As he spoke, he did not slow down at all. He drove the vast universe arc away with all his might. You're courting death. Old monster Ku Ting let out an earth-shaking roar, and attacked with all his strength. But to Lin Sun's surprise, old monster Ku Ting was not targeting him, but a powerful cultivator on the ground. It was an alien beast, and it was secretly approaching Starfall Peak. It wanted to take this opportunity to ascend the peak first. Obviously, it was very tempted by Lin Sun's proposal. But it did not expect that old monster Ku Ting would abandon Lin Sun and directly attack. Boom! In an instant, the area was intertwined with black and white divine light. The alien beast did not even have time to resist, and was killed on the spot. In the distance, some of the powerful cultivators who were planning to ascend the peak saw this, and they were instantly shocked. Their expressions changed, and they quickly retreated. Do you really think I'm an idiot? I'll give up the great fortune of Starfall Peak for a little bastard? You idiots, you don't even know that you're being used by that little bastard. You're really stupid. Old monster Ku Ting's face was livid, and he scolded coldly. Only then did the powerful cultivators in the distance notice that Lin Sun's figure had long disappeared from the void. Obviously, he had taken this opportunity to escape. In an instant, the expressions of the powerful cultivators turned ugly. Sure enough, that black-hearted kid did not have good intentions at all. He was using them to restrain old monster Ku Ting, so that the latter did not dare to rashly leave Starfall Peak. Damn it! Some of the powerful cultivators were so angry that their faces turned red. They were led by the nose by a junior, and they did not even know that they were being used. It made them lose face. Humph! Old monster Ku Ting was originally furious, but when he saw the extremely embarrassed expressions of the powerful cultivators, he felt inexplicably at ease. This kind of feeling was probably like he had fallen into the water, and at the same time, he had dragged a group of people down with him. Everyone was miserable, and they had lost some face. Naturally, they would not laugh at each other. But, the moment he thought of Lin Sun, old monster Ku Ting was furious. In the end, he turned around angrily and returned to Starfall Peak. It could not be helped, Lin Sun had already escaped, and it was impossible to chase after him. Even if old monster Ku Ting had a stomach full of hatred, he had nowhere to vent it. Little bastard, don't let me see you again,